The poor have no place here. That's what client's president's son said before pouring beer over my younger brother's head. At the time, I was hosting an end-of-year party at a high-end Japanese restaurant, inviting representatives from 10 of our partner companies, all of whom worked with the 30 companies I oversee. The one who poured beer over my brother's head was Michael Harris, the son of the president of Harris Construction. I immediately asked the restaurant staff to bring a towel. And after that, Harris Construction experienced hell. My name is James Anderson, 32 years old. My brother is Mark, 22 years old, a decade younger than me. We run a real estate business that we inherited from our grandfather. Mark and I have lived a life full of ups and downs. Let me take a moment to look back on our past. I was born to a father who worked as a salesperson at my grandfather's real estate company and a mother who worked there as an office administrator. I was a typical, healthy boy attending preschool. We lived in a terraced house, which was owned by my grandfather. My mother's younger sister, my aunt, also lived in the same terraced house with her husband. Since they had no children, they doted on me as their nephew. My aunt, a homemaker, often took me to and from preschool. Even as an elementary school pupil, I enjoyed spending time with friends from the terrace, playing games, doing homework together, and visiting each other's homes. When I was in the upper grades of elementary school, a cute little brother was born into my family. Mark started attending daycare at the age of 1, and my aunt continued to take him to and from daycare. When Mark learned to speak a little, he would come home from daycare, run to me, and say, "James, I'm home." I couldn't help but adore him. But when I was in my second year of middle school, tragedy struck. My parents suddenly passed away. My grandfather held a small funeral for them, but I couldn't hold back my tears as I hugged 4-year-old Mark, who was sobbing uncontrollably. My aunt was crying her heart out, devastated by the sudden loss of her sister. My parents were reduced to ashes and placed in their grave. My grandfather's eyes were red with grief. I couldn't accept the reality for a while. But Mark, still so young, cried every single day. He wouldn't eat or go to daycare. "James, where is Daddy? Where is Mommy?" He would tremble and cry while asking me that. All I could do was hold his small body tightly, swallowing my own tears. Eventually, we were adopted by my aunt and uncle. Our last name changed from Taylor to Anderson. My classmates knew the circumstances, so they didn't say anything. But I, once a lively boy, became a much quieter person. My aunt worked hard to cook meals like rice porridge for Mark, and gradually, he began to eat more and sleep well, often sticking close to me. When I became a third-year middle school student, I decided I wanted to work instead of going to high school. Though my aunt and uncle treated us kindly, I didn't want to burden them too much. I wanted to buy what I needed myself instead of asking my aunt. I also wanted to provide for Mark, who was about to start elementary school. Though my uncle strongly encouraged me to continue my education, I sought advice from my grandfather. He introduced me to a construction site through a connection. I decided to take the high school equivalency test while working. I started working on site, and during that time, Mark entered elementary school. Although he was a bright child, he seemed reserved at school. The construction work was tough, but at night, I bought high school textbooks and studied hard. Mark, who ate well and slept soundly, was given a shared room with me on the second floor of the house. It was divided by a single sliding screen, each of us with about 6 tatami mats of space. I also helped Mark with his homework. Mark turned out to be quite good at studying. My aunt's cooking tasted just like my mother's, and it was delicious. The house diagonally across from where we used to live as a family now had new occupants. The only thing I brought with me that belonged to my late mother was her small laptop, which I cherished deeply. My uncle, who worked as a salesperson for an insurance company, had an internet connection at home, so I occasionally used my mother's laptop, learning how to use the keyboard. Mark also seemed interested in it, playing simple games and typing out the alphabet for fun. When Mark was in the 3rd grade, he started skipping school. My aunt noticed it and brought it up with me. though she didn't know the reason why. I asked Mark, "Do you not like school?" Yeah, he replied hesitantly. "Did something happen?" I asked. "Promise you won't tell anyone, James?" "Yeah, I promise," I said. That's when he told me that a classmate, Michael, the same Michael Harris who bullied him before, was taunting him, calling him names like orphan and poor kid from the terraced houses. Though it added to my aunt's burdens, Mark was doing well academically. I asked my aunt not to push him to attend school too much, as I thought forcing him might only make things worse. By that time, I had turned 18, passed my high school equivalency exam, and used my savings to get a driver's license. When I turned 20, I got a call from my grandfather. "James, you've been working hard at the site and with your studies. Can you use a computer?" "Yeah, Grandpa, I can use it a little," I replied. "Good. How about working in the administrative department of our company?" "What?" I was surprised. Grandpa bought me a suit and arranged for me to say my goodbyes to Mr. Ford, the boss at the construction site, and the rest of the team who had supported me. I transitioned to working at my grandfather's company. Until I saved up enough for my own car, Grandpa let me use one of the company vehicles for commuting. My responsibilities included buying office supplies and handling other miscellaneous tasks. By then, Mark was in 5th grade, rarely attending school but continuing his studies at home. With my first paycheck, I bought Mark a new computer and enrolled him in an online education program. I occasionally helped Mark with his studies, though he rarely needed it. "Thanks, James," he said with a bright smile, clearly thrilled with his new computer. He had become quite introverted by this time but had developed a deep interest in computers. Honestly, I thought he might know more about them than I did. Our mother's laptop had become outdated by then. As I settled into my job at Grandpa's company, I couldn't help but reflect, this is where Mom and Dad used to work. After 3 years of working in admin and handling various tasks, Grandpa approached me with a new challenge. "James, how about trying your hand at sales, like your father used to?" "Sales, huh? Do you think I can handle it?" I asked, uncertain. "Don't worry. I'll come with you at first. You can learn little by little," he reassured me. With Grandpa's guidance, I began learning the ropes of sales. Sometimes, I accompanied Grandpa to client dinners and business entertainment events. Grandpa introduced me as a new hire. Because my last name was different, no one suspected I had been hired through family connections. Grandpa believed it was better to keep that quiet, as nepotism might lead to resentment among the other employees. Meanwhile, Mark had entered middle school but remained introverted and continued to skip school most of the time. Still, his studies were progressing smoothly through his online education program. He showed up for exams and consistently achieved perfect scores, proudly showing me his results. However, he wasn't very good at physical education. It seemed Michael Harris's bullying hadn't stopped. But I didn't want to pressure Mark into attending school if it would harm his mental health. Instead, Mark often helped my aunt around the house, and she appreciated his kindness. "James, how's Mark doing with his studies?" my aunt asked me one day. "Thanks for everything, Auntie." "He's doing great, always getting perfect scores," I replied with a smile. "Wow. Computers these days are amazing," my aunt exclaimed with a laugh. I started giving my uncle $300 a month for household expenses. At first, he refused, saying I didn't need to pay since we weren't being charged rent thanks to Grandpa. But when I mentioned that Mark was growing and eating more, he finally accepted. As I became more independent in my sales role, I began visiting various construction companies and small real estate firms. Over time, I got along well with my colleagues in the sales department, often going out for drinks at pubs. Thanks to the sales tips I had learned from Grandpa, my performance was strong, and I ranked high in sales results. My closest colleague was a guy named Alex. "James, you're at the top of sales again this month. What's your secret?" he asked. "Secret? I don't really know. Maybe it's just luck," I replied. Luck? Nah, you're good looking, James. Maybe that's the trick, appearances matter, huh? What? Me? Good looking? That's the first time I've heard that. Honestly, I just smile a lot and try to lighten the mood. Ah, so charm is key too, huh? Yeah, especially since most of our clients are in construction. A lot of them are loud and intimidating, so I try to make things a little less tense. Got it. I'll give it my best too, Alex said with a grin. That was the kind of person Alex was. At that time, I was 25 years old. Mark was preparing for high school entrance exams. One day, he came to me for advice. James, I still hate school. I don't want to go to high school, he admitted. Really? That's a shame since you're so good at studying. What about taking the bar exam? Maybe becoming a lawyer? A lawyer? Mark asked, surprised. Yeah, why not talk to Grandpa about it? I suggested. When I said that, it seemed he had a discussion with Grandpa. In the end, he decided to get his high school diploma and enrolled in an online commercial high school program. Grandpa also suggested that Mark start working at our company, beginning as a cleaner. Mark readily accepted. Grandpa had him work directly with other cleaning contractors to learn the ropes. From then on, I started commuting with Mark by train. He had been homebound for so long that he wasn't used to public transportation anymore. Mark was dressed casually as he boarded the train. That's when he ran into someone he really didn't want to see. Hey, Mark. So, you're just some dropout, huh? A poor loser with no future. How pathetic, a loud voice jeered. Mark stayed silent. Later, I found out that the guy was Michael Harris, the same bully who had tormented Mark since elementary school. Apparently, Michael came from a wealthy family, lived in a mansion, and was always bragging about his riches, surrounded by his lackeys. Mark and I decided to take an earlier train starting the next day. From what I'd heard, that guy Michael was truly unpleasant. We didn't want to start our mornings with such negativity. As we commuted, I stood beside Mark in my suit, and it seemed Michael hadn't realized I was Mark's older brother. Mark, meanwhile, had developed an interest in law and decided to aim for the bar exam. Even after work, he studied diligently, just as I had when I was younger. Using his own salary, he enrolled in an online course to prepare for the exam. He also earned his real estate broker's license and, in just 4 years, passed the bar exam. At the same time, he completed his high school diploma. I was in awe of Mark's dedication. He was even more disciplined than I had been. At 20, Mark also obtained his notary license, which he excitedly shared with Grandpa. To celebrate, Grandpa invited us to a high-end Japanese restaurant. Mark wore the suit Grandpa had bought him, and he was visibly nervous about the luxurious atmosphere. We followed Grandpa inside, taking in the grandeur. You've both worked hard. Relax and enjoy tonight, Grandpa said. James, you've been the top performer in sales, and Mark, your diligence is incredible. So, Mark, will you be working at a law firm for now during your judicial apprenticeship? Yeah, Grandpa, for a little while, Mark replied. I see. Well, do your best. Once you're done, I want you to become our company's legal advisor, Grandpa said with a proud smile. Thank you, Grandpa. Absolutely. Mark replied enthusiastically. As the soft sound of a koto played in the background, I felt at peace. When my parents passed away, I couldn't think about anything except burying myself in work and studies to forget the pain. Perhaps Mark had felt the same way. Grandpa must have also struggled immensely after losing his only son. Thinking about it, I felt my eyes welling up. Grandpa poured us some high-end sake and said, Mark, happy 20th birthday. Cheers. We all toasted and enjoyed an incredible feast together. I couldn't help but think, someday, I want to bring my aunt and uncle, who took such good care of us, to a place like this.
After enjoying the delicious meal, we headed home.
Eventually, Mark obtained his lawyer's license. At 22, however, he started working in the accounting department of Grandpa's company. Since he had graduated from a commercial high school, he was skilled at accounting. At the same time, he officially became our company's legal advisor. I was now 32 years old. I continued to focus on sales, building up our client base one step at a time. For small real estate and construction companies, I would lease land for apartments or houses, helping them grow. This was Grandpa's method. Rather than selling land outright, he generated income through rents. At that time, we had 25 major clients. 3 years later, the number of clients under my management grew to 30.
Grandpa was overjoyed. Around then, Grandpa's health started to decline. I was 35 and Mark was 25. Grandpa had to start dialysis treatments, which limited his ability to work. He appointed me as the company president and made Mark his executive secretary. After that, Grandpa had something important to discuss with us. We headed once again to a high-end Japanese restaurant.
"Sorry to take you away from your busy schedules," he said.
"But I wanted to talk about something important."
"I may not have much time left."
"What are you talking about, Grandpa?"
I protested.
"Yeah, don't say things like that. You've got to stay strong, Grandpa." Mark added. No, it's not about being weak."
"I've decided to give both of you my assets as a living inheritance," Grandpa said calmly.
"Oh, I see. So, this is about the properties, right?" I asked. "Exactly."
"I want everything to be transferred over, so I'll need your signatures here," Grandpa explained, sliding the paperwork over to us.
When we saw the total assets, we were speechless. Grandpa had always been both kind and strict.
When we said we didn't want to go to high school or college, he didn't let us take the easy way out. He sent me to work on a construction site and Mark to start as a cleaner, teaching us the harsh realities of life. At the same time, he instilled in us the importance of education. Grandpa himself had faced struggles as a high school graduate, working tirelessly to build his legacy.
Grandma had passed away before we were born. So Grandpa had focused solely on work to cope with his sadness.
After that day, Grandpa began teaching me the ins and outs of running the company.
Mark, too, excelled in the accounting department.
Though we were brothers, our age gap was significant, and many people didn't even realize we were related. Still, our achievements spoke for themselves, and the staff fully supported our promotions.
One evening, Alex invited me out for drinks. "James, you're amazing. Becoming the company president. And all those clients we have now? You brought them in. The rest of us were just handling paperwork." Alex said with a laugh. "Thanks, Alex.
But honestly, your reports were always so clear and helpful."
"I really appreciated them."
"I've already talked to Chairman, Mr. Taylor, and we're appointing you as the sales department manager," I told him.
"What? Really? That's incredible. Thank you." Alex beamed.
Alex and I had shared a lot, even though I didn't have much of a youth. We hung out at pubs and explored the city together whenever we could.
Grandpa was not only a wise businessman but also a kind-hearted person.
In recent years, more young people have been moving to rural areas. The cost of living is high, and remote work has made relocation more practical. Grandpa suggested that we use part of the inheritance he had gifted us to purchase land in rural regions. Mark and I began traveling to these areas together, working on sales. We bought up underutilized or depopulated land at higher prices, helping the local economy. I asked Alex, the head of the sales department, to propose partnerships to construction companies. In rural areas, many properties were abandoned, creating problems for local communities. We offered to assist with demolishing these structures, which encouraged property owners to sell the land to us. Mark and I also visited government offices together to discuss transportation infrastructure in these areas, suggesting improvements. For construction projects, we worked with reliable construction companies that had partnered with us before. As a result, our workload became heavier and heavier, but we were grateful for the opportunities during such tough economic times. To express our gratitude, Mark and I decided to gift a luxury apartment to our aunt and uncle, who had raised us like their own children. My aunt, who raised us like her own children. My uncle, who was always so kind to us. They were overjoyed with their new home. Losing our parents was a deep sadness, but with the support of so many people, we had managed to move forward. Grandpa had always treated us as his beloved grandchildren, and through his guidance and generosity, we thrived. As the year came to a close, the snow began to fall. It had been the busiest year of our lives. Grandpa suggested hosting an end-of-year party for 10 of our key business partners. We booked a spacious private room at our usual high-end Japanese restaurant and invited about 20 employees from various construction and real estate firms, not just the presidents but others who were actively involved in the industries. As we sent out invitations online, I noticed one name that caught my attention: Michael Harris. Curious, I did some research and confirmed he was the son of the president of Harris Construction. He appeared to be the son of the president of Harris Construction. Grandpa now held the role of honorary chairman in practice. Due to his dietary restrictions, he mentioned he would only give a brief greeting before leaving. And then, the day of the year-end party arrived. On the day of the party, 20 guests arrived in high spirits. Among them were familiar faces, CEOs and employees who knew Mark and me well, and others we had never met before. Grandpa, now essentially the chairman of the company, greeted everyone with a short speech. "Thank you all for coming despite your busy schedules. It's been an incredibly demanding year, and I hope you enjoy tonight at your leisure. I have other engagements, so I'll leave after this toast. Here's to all of you, cheers." The room echoed with a warm, collective cheers as Grandpa raised his glass before quietly departing. And then, Grandpa left the venue. The year-end party continued in a lively atmosphere. However, it wasn't the rowdiness of a bar. Since it was held in a traditional Japanese restaurant, everyone maintained proper decorum. I sat across from Mark, scanning the room. My eyes searched for the face of someone I had only seen once, years ago: Michael Harris. I was almost certain it was him. And just as I thought that, Michael spotted Mark. Well, if it isn't Mark. "Which construction company do you work for these days?" he asked mockingly. Mark responded calmly, Michael. I don't work in construction, I'm in real estate." "Real estate? Ha! How did a high school dropout like you even get a job? And to show up at a place like this? You're a joke. The poor don't belong here," Michael sneered. With that, he poured beer over Mark's head. "Hey! What the hell are you doing, Michael?" I stood up, glaring at him. "You haven't changed a bit, have you?" "No, it's you who hasn't changed. You're still out of place here," Michael shot back. I sighed deeply, ignoring the murmurs of the others in the room as I quickly ran to find the restaurant staff and borrow 3 towels. "Mark, here, use these to clean up," I said, handing him the towels. Michael glanced at me and sneered, "And who are you, old man? This loser's friend?" The private room was buzzing with whispers and uneasy glances. I took a deep breath and looked directly at him. "You're Michael Harris, right? Tell me, where do you work?" Michael puffed out his chest. "I'm the son of the president of Harris Construction." "Ah, I see. So you're the infamous Michael Harris who bullied my younger brother since childhood," I said calmly. "Wait, your brother? Who are you?" he stammered. Without a word, I pulled out a business card with our company name, listing me as the CEO, and handed it to him. "CEO of Taylor Real Estate." "CEO? James Anderson?" Michael's face turned pale, and his body began to tremble. I followed up, "And Mark, My brother is my executive secretary.
Executive secretary? Mark? Michael stammered, disbelief written across his face. That's right, I said coldly. And you've really outdone yourself today, haven't you? All the land your father's company rents is under my name.
After what you did to my brother tonight, consider every single one of our contracts cancelled.
I'll also be demanding you buy back all the land immediately. Wait, I didn't know. Please forgive me.
I don't know how I'll even explain this to my father, he pleaded desperately.
That's not my problem. And another thing, what's with this talk of a high school dropout and poverty?
Just so you know, we both earned high school diplomas, but our work ethic has nothing to do with formal education. Oh, and by the way, Mark is also our company's legal advisor. What you just did could easily be classified as assault.
I'll be filing charges. You'd better inform your father immediately. Legal advisor, a lawyer.
Michael muttered, his voice shaking, before he bolted from the room. I turned to the other guests and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize for the commotion.
Please enjoy the rest of the evening." Mark and I quietly paid the bill and left the restaurant.
On the way out, I informed Grandpa about what had happened. He'll probably come to apologize tomorrow, Grandpa said with certainty. As predicted, Michael showed up at our office the next day with his father, the president of Harris Construction. Grandpa, Mark, and I met them at reception. Michael's father, Mr. Harris, placed a gift box on the counter and bowed deeply before getting on his knees in apology. I responded to them with Mark and Grandpa at the reception desk. My son behaved terribly last night. I deeply apologize for his actions, Mr. Harris said, his head lowered. He then forced Michael to bow his head as well. Michael followed suit, saying, "I am truly sorry," with his forehead pressed to the floor. Grandpa, looking at them sternly, finally spoke. "What you did to my dear grandson. Honestly. But well, raise your heads." As Mr. Harris lifted his head, he looked visibly shaken. "I had no idea Mark was your grandson, Mr. Taylor. Please, I beg you, don't sever ties with us." Grandpa turned to Mark. "The one who was harmed is Mark. He will decide." Mark's expression was calm but firm. "All future dealings are off the table. Every piece of land my brother owns must be bought back immediately." I never want to see Michael's face again. Michael whimpered, "No, please." Mark continued, "If all the land is bought back, I won't report this to the police. Handle the paperwork immediately." "But we don't have that kind of money." Mr. Harris stuttered. "Then I can introduce you to a financial institution," Mark replied coldly. Defeated, the two left the office with their heads hung low. Shortly afterward, Harris Construction collapsed under the weight of its debts. The company couldn't secure enough funds and eventually went bankrupt. It was, perhaps, a case of karma for having looked down on my brother all those years. Mr. Harris ended up working as a long-haul truck driver, and Michael, after begging an acquaintance for work, ended up as a laborer on construction sites, yelled at constantly by his supervisors. The once spoiled Michael was now struggling to survive, day and night, in harsh conditions. As for me, Alex introduced me to a friend of his wife, and we began dating. Mark, on the other hand, started seeing someone from one of our business partners, and things were going well for him too. Grandpa continued to stay active, attending hospital for dialysis but still managing to stay healthy. 3 years later, at 38, I returned home from work to find my adorable 2-year-old daughter running to greet me at the door. My wife smiling warmly behind her. Mark and I had purchased a luxury apartment together. Mark was now living with his girlfriend, and they seemed happy. Alex and I remained close friends, and we often went on outdoor adventures, fishing, hiking, or trips to the beach with our families. Mark, who had missed out on much of his youth, now enjoyed date nights, dinners, and movies with his partner. Looking back, Grandpa's company had been a small real estate business when I was a child. Through his persistence, he grew it into what it is today. One of the most reputable real estate firms in Japan. My journey began on construction sites, never imagining I'd one day lead this company.
I never imagined I would be recruited into my grandfather's company after passing the high school equivalency exam.
While handling office work and miscellaneous tasks, I finally began to enjoy life a bit with Alex after becoming an adult, but I had no real youth to speak of during my younger years. Today, I take Grandpa to his medical appointments and often visit our aunt and uncle, bringing my daughter along.
I realize now how lucky I've been.
Losing our parents could have sent Mark and me to an orphanage, but thanks to Grandpa and many others, we were able to build a life.
Sometimes, while fishing with Alex by the vast, blue sea, I think about this.
Our wives take care of the kids while we fish, and life feels peaceful.
Real estate companies mainly operate on weekends.
That's why I take my days off on Wednesdays or Thursdays, making it easier to drive to distant places with less traffic on the roads. Meanwhile, rumors say Mr. Harris is still driving trucks to pay off his debts, and Michael, under the harsh conditions of manual labor, has finally come to understand what struggle feels like. If that year-end party hadn't happened, perhaps Michael would have continued looking down on Mark every time they crossed paths. Through hot days and cold nights, the once spoiled Michael Harris is said to be barely holding up.
When I think about how, without that year-end party, Mark might have continued to be belittled by Michael, called poor or a dropout every time they crossed paths, it sends chills down my spine.
Mark had disliked Michael since elementary school, to the point where he couldn't even attend school because of him.
But Mark used those experiences as motivation to excel in his studies.
Perhaps focusing on academics was the only way he could cope with the loneliness of losing our parents.
My daughter will soon turn 4.
Our parents passed away when Mark was 4 years old.
At the time, Mark cried endlessly.
He wouldn't eat and resisted even being called to the bath. Once he started to calm down, I made it a point to bathe him every day. I'd sing in the bathroom, and the echo made him laugh and smile. Now, just like back then, I sing in the bath with my daughter, who sits in the tub, smiling and singing along. And now, my wife is expecting our second child.
The next one is expected to be a boy.
I will finally become a father of 2, just like my parents once were. I vow to continue protecting the company Grandpa worked so hard to build, both as a father and as its president. In this place, those with a medical license are absolute. Everyone else is nothing but trash.
But the patient's condition is. What? Are you, someone without a medical license, daring to talk back to me? I am a doctor. Just shut up and do as I say. Now move, you're in the way.
With those words, Dr. Hawthorne shoved me, an endoscopy technician, hard on the shoulder. Dr. Hawthorne was a physician who blatantly looked down on nurses and technicians who didn't have medical licenses. I tried to convey a minor change in the patient's condition, but he wouldn't listen. When it comes to the patient, it shouldn't matter whether you're a doctor or a nurse. I wanted to say that, but instead, I bit my lip and held my tongue. Then, the condition of a patient Dr. Hawthorne had operated on suddenly took a turn for the worse.
Dr. Hawthorne. The patient needs surgery immediately. Dr. Hawthorne.
But Dr. Hawthorne, faced with the sudden crisis, froze, his breathing quick and shallow. His face was pale.
I can't. There's no way I can perform this surgery.
Dr. Hawthorne stood motionless, his face drained of color.
But if we don't act, the patient will. The patient was in critical condition, and every second counted. Everyone was frantically trying to think of what to do without wasting a single moment. I made up my mind. I'll do it. My name is James.
I work as an endoscopy technician at a specialized gastrointestinal hospital. When I was in high school, my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer and passed away in what felt like no time at all. She had raised me on her own, juggling work and household responsibilities, so she never had the time or resources to go to the hospital,
let alone undergo tests. By the time the cancer was discovered, it was too late. The doctor had said that earlier detection might have made a difference. At first, I couldn't accept that my mother had cancer, and I felt like I was walking in darkness every day. However, my mother's doctor and the nurses frequently reached out to us with kind words. "Welcome back, James." "Oh, hi. Good afternoon. Visiting your mother every day must give her so much strength." "All right, you're good to go." "Yeah, he's grown up to be such a fine, dedicated young man, more than I deserve." Hearing that, I couldn't help but feel embarrassed as a teenager. And the doctor would say, "You've done so well up until now. And James too, you've worked so hard." He always offered words of encouragement and positivity. On another day, when I came to visit the hospital again, I happened to run into the doctor in the hallway, and he spoke to me. During our conversation, he said, "Just having someone by your side can bring comfort. The fact that you come here like this is also a part of your mother's treatment." "Really? Am I actually being helpful?" "Absolutely. Without a doubt, you're helping. I can examine her condition or sometimes heal her through surgery, but I can never take your place. Even doctors and nurses can't compete with the comfort you bring to her." When I was feeling powerless and frustrated with myself, the words the doctor shared sank deeply into my heart. I was busy with school and part-time work. But the reason I kept coming to visit was that these conversations with the doctor were my only source of relief when the weight of my worries felt overwhelming. Thanks to the doctor and the nurses, I could always stay positive in front of my mother. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" "James, it's so good to see you." "I'm feeling pretty good today." Even though the side effects of the chemotherapy were obviously tough on her, and she always looked pale, she never failed to smile when I came to visit. "I'm sorry for getting sick like this, James. You should be out having fun with your friends instead of coming here all the time." "Don't say that. I'm here because I want to be. Besides, Grandma is around too, so you just need to focus on getting better." "Okay, I will. Thank you, James." My grandmother, my mother's mom, lived nearby and would sometimes help around the house or visit my mom in the hospital. Her presence was a great support for both my mom and me. Still, every time I saw my once vibrant mother, now frail and wearing an apologetic expression, my chest tightened with pain. I don't want anyone else to go through the same suffering as my mom or me. Gradually, I began to feel a desire to become someone who could support patients like the doctor and nurses had. And I started considering a path in healthcare. So, alongside visiting my mom, I threw myself into studying rigorously. What should I strive for to save as many lives as possible? What does it truly mean to stand by a patient? Even while studying or working part-time, those thoughts constantly swirled in my mind. With relentless effort, I managed to pass the entrance exam for a prestigious medical school. And then, just before my high school graduation, my mother passed away peacefully, as if she were merely sleeping. Then 6 months later, my grandmother also passed, as if following my mother. Left alone in the world, I immersed myself in my studies at medical school, trying to fill the void. Constantly fighting off sleep, I tackled daily assignments, pulled all-nighters for reports, and worked part-time to support myself. My body and mind were stretched to their limits. But the regret I felt after losing my mother fueled my determination to keep going. I spent my student years buried in studies, overcame grueling clinical training, and finally took the first step toward my dream. I worked at various hospitals. At general hospitals, I got entangled in internal power politics. At small-town clinics, I faced the harsh realities of community healthcare. I often felt the weight of patients' suffering, sadness, and struggles, and more than once, I thought my spirit might break. I never wanted to feel this way again. There were countless times I thought about submitting my resignation. Still, I persevered, studying diligently during whatever free time I could find,
and eventually became an endoscopy technician.
Finally, I felt like I could practice the kind of healthcare I had always envisioned.
By a stroke of luck, I landed a position at a specialized gastrointestinal hospital.
James, I've finished checking the equipment. Please confirm it. Thank you. Then, could you double-check this as well?
I handed a thick file of documents to the nurse.
James, it's really reassuring to have you here. I'm counting on you again today. I'm honored to hear that. Though, it's a bit embarrassing.
The cheerful banter with my colleagues eased the tension from earlier. Working at a hospital often keeps your nerves on edge, but the director, Dr. Kennedy, placed his full trust in my work. And my colleagues, both doctors and nurses, were great people, making it easy to do my job.
From my experience, this environment was easily among the top 3 I'd ever worked in.
Especially within my surgical team, we got along well, sharing jokes and discussing trending topics, creating a pleasant camaraderie. I deeply appreciated the joy of working in such a warm and friendly atmosphere.
Then, one day, "Hey everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?"
Even though we had several surgeries scheduled and were busy preparing, everyone stopped what they were doing and gathered around Dr. Kennedy.
"Sorry to interrupt when you're so busy, but I wanted to introduce someone.
Starting today, this doctor will be joining our team." The person introduced was a tall, slim man in a deep navy suit who looked about my age. He seemed a little nervous, but his sharp, arched brows radiated confidence.
"This is Dr. Hawthorne.
He has handled numerous surgeries at various hospitals and has become something of a sensation in the medical community. I personally invited him here because I believe he can make a significant contribution to this hospital. I hope all of you will work together with him to achieve even greater things." Dr. Kennedy then gestured for Dr. Hawthorne to introduce himself. Stepping forward, Dr. Hawthorne began speaking in an unusually clear and resonant voice.
"Nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Hawthorne, as introduced. I've had extensive surgical experience, and I believe I can make meaningful contributions here as well."
He puffed out his chest with pride. "Not to boast, but some of the cases I've handled have been featured in medical conferences.
With me here, this hospital will be in excellent hands for years to come. Isn't that right, Dr. Kennedy?"
Dr. Kennedy smiled broadly at his words.
"That's very reassuring to hear.
Anyway, I'll save the details for later. I look forward to working with all of you." His dazzlingly white teeth flashed as he smiled, leaving me with an inexplicable feeling of unease. While I clapped along with everyone else, it was clear from the atmosphere that many, like me, were a bit perplexed. If Dr. Kennedy placed that much trust in him, there was no doubt that Dr. Hawthorne was an exceptionally skilled physician. As I vaguely pondered such thoughts, I never imagined that this day would mark the beginning of a major shift in our environment.
"Hey! Stop dawdling and get everything ready quickly. But we're currently assisting with another surgery. There's no time for that. The patient is waiting."
Dr. Hawthorne seemed to believe he was the most important person in the room, pushing forward with his own agenda without regard for others.
Everyone around him was put off by his attitude.
In this team, those with a medical license are absolute. The rest of you are nothing but trash. Your job is to ensure that my work runs smoothly at all times.
He would openly look down on nurses and technicians who didn't have medical licenses.
If anything went wrong, it was always their fault, even when it was clearly due to Dr. Hawthorne's own misunderstanding. Yet, he would never admit it and instead vent his frustration on them.
Gradually, everyone started to avoid him.
The nurses, in particular, became fearful of him, and even the other doctors distanced themselves, not wanting to get caught up in his drama. I kept a professional attitude, treating work as work, and maintained a calm demeanor. But perhaps that's what irked Dr. Hawthorne, as he began targeting me whenever an issue arose.
"Hey! When are you going to finalize this patient's surgery date?"
Actually, this patient had a traumatic experience during a previous procedure. So I'm trying to approach the situation carefully and ease their concerns as we discuss. Dr. Hawthorne glared sharply and snapped, "If you keep doing that, you'll never get to the surgery.
And if that happens, we can't take in new patients."
Just come up with some excuse and send them to another hospital."
What? Are you saying we should just turn them away? Listen, a hospital can't function without processing as many cases as possible.
But I suppose someone like you, without a medical license, wouldn't understand that world. Just so you know, Dr. Hawthorne said, pushing his glasses up sharply, this is a hospital for performing surgeries, not a place to keep people who don't need or can't undergo surgery. And aftercare is completely out of the question because with so many hospitals around these days, if we're even a little slow or hesitant, other hospitals will take our patients, so keep that firmly in mind. Finally, as always, he delivered his ultimatum. Dr. Kennedy has entrusted me with the future of this hospital.
If you can't follow my orders, you're free to leave.
It was nothing short of intimidation. It was true that, as Dr. Hawthorne said,
a hospital couldn't sustain itself on patients requiring only aftercare or those who couldn't undergo surgery. However, a hospital isn't just about curing diseases.
It's also about supporting those suffering from illness and their families.
That's an equally important role.
I decided to push back, just a little. That may be true, but isn't it also crucial to ease the fears of patients who are anxious about their illness or surgery?
You, a mere endoscopy technician, are challenging me?
A worthless nobody without a medical license. Dr. Hawthorne cut me off and shouted angrily, "If we followed your idealistic nonsense, this hospital would go under. You'd lose your job for your so-called justice,
and countless patients waiting for surgery wouldn't survive. Is that what you want?"
His sheer intensity left me unable to continue arguing. You just need to shut up and do as I say.
Accept as many new patients as possible. Got it?
With that, Dr. Hawthorne stormed out of the room, his white coat billowing behind him. My colleagues, who had been watching our exchange with concern, quietly returned to their work without saying a word to me. The once friendly and lively atmosphere had turned into something that felt like hell.
Was my belief in patient care and compassion wrong all along? I couldn't shake the complex feelings swirling within me.
Amid all this, a new patient, a man in his 60s named Kevin, came to the hospital. He complained of abdominal pain, and it was determined that an urgent examination was needed. However, I'm sorry, but I had a bad experience with an endoscopy before, and I'm worried.
It's not that I don't trust you, but there's always the chance that something could go wrong.
Kevin mentioned that he had experienced trouble during a previous endoscopy at another hospital. It was no surprise that the thought of undergoing another one made him uneasy. However, Dr. Hawthorne continued speaking without acknowledging Kevin's concerns.
If you keep saying you're scared, nothing will get better. Please leave it to us. We'll perform an endoscopy tomorrow. If we find any polyps, we'll handle them right then and there. It's simple. Understood? Please proceed with the admission paperwork. Tomorrow? Isn't that a bit sudden? These things are best done quickly. I see.
Dr. Hawthorne ignored Kevin's visibly anxious demeanor and methodically explained the pre-surgery precautions and forms to fill out. Without giving him much room to respond, he urged Kevin out of the room.
Dr. Hawthorne, Kevin seemed very anxious. Are you sure he's okay? You know, it's just an endoscopy.
You can get it done in no time if you just hurry up, he said, adjusting his glasses with a sharp motion before continuing. We're overwhelmed with patients waiting for surgery right now. There's no time to waste.
Got it? Once this one's done, move on to the next patient.
But shouldn't we monitor him closely for a while after the procedure?
Just do as I say. Understood. The next day, it was finally Kevin's turn. As preparations were underway to administer the anesthesia, Kevin spoke up. Are you sure everything will be okay?
His voice trembled, and his expression was filled with worry. You see, we've never been able to have children.
It's just been me and my wife for so long. People had their opinions about it, but I've always felt happy in my own way.
I just want to spend the rest of my days quietly with her. Our parents have already passed,
so my wife has no one but me. I can't stop thinking about what would happen to her if something happened to me. I can't even sleep at night.
Kevin poured out the feelings he must have been bottling up for a long time.
Don't worry.
The doctors here are highly skilled. Let's get you better so you can reassure your wife, okay?
Thank you. Honestly, the doctor here seemed a bit intimidating, and I was worried. But having someone as kind as you around makes me feel much better.
I feel embarrassed, a grown man like me, showing weakness.
There's nothing embarrassing about that. Everyone feels anxious in situations like this.
I crouched down to meet his gaze, speaking calmly and steadily. We'll do everything in our power to ensure your procedure goes smoothly.
Your wife is counting on us and on you.
Just as Kevin was about to speak, someone shouted, "Hey!
What are you doing? Get him to the operating room, now." Kevin's expression once again clouded with worry. It's going to be fine.
I'll be here with you, so please don't worry, I said with a reassuring smile, trying to put him at ease. As we entered the operating room and I took my position next to Dr. Hawthorne, he abruptly addressed me.
You don't need to assist. Just stand there and keep quiet.
But, without a medical license, you clearly don't agree with my methods.
Having you around only irritates me.
His words were unnecessarily harsh and pointed.
All right, let's get started.
Dr. Hawthorne began the procedure with practiced hands. However, whether it was due to haste or something else, his movements appeared somewhat rough.
All I could do was watch silently from the side. Sweat.
A nurse nervously stepped forward to wipe the sweat from Dr. Hawthorne's brow. This was a situation where even the smallest mistake could not be afforded. We continued monitoring the inside of the body on the screen. As expected, we were able to locate several polyps. Though they were sizable, removing them shouldn't have posed significant difficulty.
All right. Moving on to the excision. Scalpel. Dr. Hawthorne issued commands swiftly and continued the procedure efficiently.
However, partway through, his demeanor began to change noticeably. Anxiety started to creep into his expression, and the atmosphere in the room grew tense. The other staff began shifting uncomfortably.
Damn it! What the hell is this? Are you okay? Shut up. If you're not a doctor, keep quiet. You're breaking my focus.
Although the patient's condition remained stable, prolonging the procedure could increase the strain on his body. Eventually, it took about an hour to remove all the polyps. Post-surgery, Kevin seemed stable, and everything appeared to have gone well.
Or so we thought. That night,
as I prepared to take a short nap at my desk during my night shift,
it happened. The emergency alarm blared throughout the room. Someone's condition had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. At that moment, my phone rang. Hello? It was a nurse. Kevin's condition had deteriorated unexpectedly. With a sinking feeling, I sprinted to Kevin's room. What happened? He was stable until this evening. According to the attending nurse, the call button in Kevin's room had gone off.
When she rushed in, she found him clutching his abdomen in agony,
groaning in pain. By the time Dr. Hawthorne arrived, Kevin was barely conscious.
It seemed likely that something had gone wrong during the earlier excision. He was immediately transported to the operating room, and an emergency surgery began. Using the endoscope, we found a perforation at the excision site, with significant bleeding.
If this wasn't addressed immediately, his life would be in jeopardy. Dr. Hawthorne. We need to operate right now. Dr. Hawthorne.
But Dr. Hawthorne, faced with the grim reality, froze, his breathing shallow and rapid. His face turned pale.
Why is this happening?
His hands trembled as he backed away from the operating table where Kevin lay.
It's not my fault. Hey! Did you hand me the wrong instrument earlier?
He lashed out at the assisting nurse, yelling furiously.
No!
I handed you exactly what you requested. I witnessed that moment myself.
There was no doubt about it. What are we supposed to do now? Is there no one else available?
The other doctors are currently in surgery with other patients.
I can't do it. There's no way I can handle this surgery.
Dr. Hawthorne stood frozen, his face pale as a sheet. The only sound in the room was the rhythmic beeping of the monitors. Everyone looked at Dr. Hawthorne, their eyes silently pleading for him to take action. But he simply glared back, then leaned against the wall, unable to move.
We couldn't afford to waste any more time. I made my decision. I'll do it. Everyone turned to me in unison. What? Are you serious? You don't even have a medical license.
Don't worry, I do.
What?
Dr. Hawthorne, James used to be a highly skilled surgeon before becoming an endoscopy technician. So there's no need to worry. I worked with him at another hospital, so I know he's more than capable. The nurse said with a reassuring smile directed at me. Time was of the essence. I stepped out to change into surgical scrubs.
Let's begin the emergency surgery.
Scalpel. Though I felt a slight twinge of nervousness holding the scalpel after so long, my muscle memory kicked in.
And I steadily proceeded with the operation.
The surgery was a success. Thankfully, we acted quickly, and Kevin's condition remained stable throughout the procedure.
Relief washed over me as I exhaled deeply.
Dr. Hawthorne, however, looked visibly uncomfortable. The nurses and staff cast cold, disapproving glances in his direction. Unable to bear the weight of their stares, Dr. Hawthorne collapsed onto the floor. Looking closer, I could see his body trembling. I approached Dr. Hawthorne and spoke to him.
Why don't we step out for a bit? It's been a while for me too, and I've worked up quite a sweat, I said, deliberately lighthearted to ease the tense atmosphere.
But Dr. Hawthorne remained expressionless. His legs wobbled, and he could barely walk, so I put my arm around his shoulder and managed to guide him to a nearby chair. While buying coffee from the vending machine, I received a call from one of the nurses who had assisted during the surgery. I returned to Dr. Hawthorne to relay the nurse's message, handing him a can of coffee as I said, "The nurse earlier said Kevin's condition is stable. And the surgery was a success."
That's...
He seemed like he wanted to say he felt relieved, but the words wouldn't come out. We both popped open our coffee cans and took a long sip.
It had been hours since either of us had taken any fluids. After a moment of silence, I finally spoke. With your skill, Dr. Hawthorne, you could have handled that emergency surgery. What happened back there?
Dr. Hawthorne stared at the floor with a grim expression before speaking haltingly.
Something like that has never happened to me before. You've never failed before, have you? No. I haven't.
For the first time, I saw genuine dejection in Dr. Hawthorne's face. The arrogance he often wore seemed to crack, revealing a vulnerability beneath it, a kind of armor he had relied on. Until today, everything had been smooth. I believed that as long as everyone followed my lead, this hospital would thrive.
That's what I held on to. But now, why did this happen?
He covered his face with his left hand.
I understand the desire to stick to your principles. But what led you to adopt that mindset? He didn't say anything.
He hesitated, clearly debating whether to open up. But after a moment, as if something inside him had shifted, he began to share his thoughts, piece by piece. My father was a doctor who ran a small clinic, a truly compassionate man who prioritized his patients above all else without caring about profits. Earning the trust and admiration of everyone, often joking with the nurses, a figure I was proud of as a child, though as I grew older, I began to question his way of doing things. His face grew more bitter, reflecting the weight of those memories. Despite earning little income, my father was always rushing around, tirelessly busy, while my mother supported him by assisting with administrative tasks. Without uttering a single complaint, my mother supported him. Watching from the sidelines, I couldn't help feeling somewhat exasperated. I wondered why he kept doing things that only seemed to bring loss. I listened silently, not wanting to miss a word. As expected, the clinic's finances became increasingly strained. And not long after, my father collapsed. It was colon cancer. By the time it was discovered, it was already too late. Dr. Hawthorne's voice cracked, and the pain in his eyes revealed how deeply this loss had scarred him. The pain of losing a parent never truly goes away. And yet, after going through all that, why did you decide to become a doctor? Because I didn't want to see more doctors like my father. My father let his compassion for others destroy not only his clinic but himself. When that happens, it all falls apart. A hospital is supposed to save lives. If you only cater to the patient's wishes without thinking about sustainability, a hospital can't survive. Don't you agree? He posed the question to me, and I closed my eyes for a moment. The hum of the vending machine felt unusually sharp in the silence. I also lost my mother to colon cancer. Dr. Hawthorne's face shifted to one of surprise. But the doctors and nurses who cared for her were incredible. Thanks to them, both my mother and I were able to spend her final moments without regret. Losing her was devastating, but my heart, it was undoubtedly saved by your father. What? Dr. Hawthorne looked at me, stunned, unable to speak, his eyes fixed on mine. When I first heard your name, I thought it couldn't be. But your last name is quite uncommon, so I did some research. I was shocked. What are the odds of something like this? Your mother was one of my father's patients? When I learned my mother didn't have long to live, I was consumed by helplessness. All I could do was bring her fresh clothes and visit her every day. But your father and the nurses didn't just care for her, they cared for my family too. Their kindness gave us incredible strength. Dr. Hawthorne listened quietly, absorbing every word. That's why I decided I wanted to become someone who could support those suffering from illness. When I achieved that dream and became a doctor, I was overjoyed. I thought I could finally be like your father, standing by people in their darkest times. Unknowingly, I had been chasing the example set by Dr. Hawthorne's father all along. From that point on, I devoted myself to supporting lives in my own way as a doctor, but over time, I began to feel that what I was doing was straying far from my original vision, and unable to continue practicing medicine without conviction. I decided to reset my career and pursue becoming an endoscopy technician. Straightening my previously leaning posture, I said, "There's always more to learn in this line of work." I let out a wry smile and gulped down the can of coffee that had long since turned lukewarm. So that's what happened. I didn't know. The tension that had stiffened Dr. Hawthorne's face began to soften little by little. Dr. Hawthorne, I cleared my throat before continuing. I don't think the convictions you've worked so hard for are wrong. The reality is, hospital management can't run on ideals alone. That's something I've come to understand through my own experiences. To save lives, there are times when we have to make compromises. Facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles, I've wrestled with that reality countless times. Keeping track of a patient's physical condition is essential. But beyond that, understanding their emotional state as thoroughly as their physical health may hold the key to truly saving lives. And also, Dr. Hawthorne remained silent, his head bowed. Patients are already vulnerable because of their illnesses. If we, as their caregivers, act cold or tense, it won't aid their recovery.
When it comes to holding someone's life in our hands, there's no room for hierarchy. That's something. After a brief hesitation, I said, that's something Dr. Hawthorne, as his son, surely understands better than anyone.
Dr. Hawthorne looked startled and lifted his head. Tears were welling up in his eyes. It was clear he had been struggling too. Unknowingly, Dr. Hawthorne had been chasing after his father's legacy, grappling with his own inner conflicts all alone.
2 weeks after the emergency surgery,
Kevin was discharged, smiling and in good health.
And then,
everyone, today's patient is very nervous about their first surgery.
While there are limits to what we can do,
please do your best to accommodate their needs as much as possible.
Yes.
Standing tall and confidently leading the surgical team, Dr. Hawthorne no longer carried his former air of arrogance. Instead, his face was lit with smiles, and he seemed more lively and engaged than ever before. Dr. Hawthorne had undergone a complete transformation, apologizing to the nurses and staff for his past behavior. Realizing that a harmonious workplace needed a touch of casual conversation, he began actively communicating with the team. With the tension gone, the atmosphere felt more unified, and the team's sense of camaraderie seemed stronger than ever. This change made work much smoother. I felt that I, too, could face patients with a greater sense of calm and focus.
Through this experience, I reaffirmed that my beliefs were not wrong. As Dr. Hawthorne said, a hospital can't run on compassion alone.
However, the body and mind are deeply interconnected, and in moments of fear or hardship, people can truly entrust themselves to those who offer them comfort and support. In a field where lives are at stake, I realized how essential it is for the people involved to be trusted and respected by their peers so that, together, they can face any challenge head-on. Moving forward, I hope to continue working with my irreplaceable colleagues to support as many patients as possible.
Well, wearing workwear. I guess you couldn't land anything but a lowly job, huh? You didn't even go to college and said you'd work at a factory. I always thought you were just that kind of person.
I was suddenly spoken to while wearing my workwear at the office. The voice belonged to a former high school classmate. She was a brilliant woman who had graduated from Harvard University. Today, she was here to interview for a position at this company. Back in high school, she always looked down on me as just the son of a small-town factory owner. And now, after 12 years, she was once again throwing thoughtless, cutting words my way. At that moment, Howard, the interviewer who had seen the entire exchange, approached us.
"Excuse me, shall we reject this candidate? Her attitude is far too rude." "What? Wait, hold on a second. What do you mean? Why are you asking him something like that?"
"Oh, because he's the..." As Howard's words trailed off, her expression froze. When she learned my real identity, her attitude quickly changed, but it was already too late. She would soon come to deeply regret her behavior.
On a mild spring afternoon, warm sunlight streamed into the office building.
I, Martin, was in the workshop examining a prototype of a new medical device. The company I work for, Blossom Precision Engineering, is an innovative medical device manufacturer founded 10 years ago. It started as a spin-off from a small-town factory and has rapidly grown by leveraging unique precision processing technology to excel in areas like artificial joints and orthopedic implants. Our microfabrication techniques are considered world-class, and the company's annual revenue now exceeds $40 million.
Our clients include major domestic medical device manufacturers.
The key components of our flagship artificial joints require micron-level precision. Each piece must undergo hundreds of inspections, but I never find the work tedious. After all, these components become part of someone's body and support their life. Good work today. A cheerful voice rang out as my sister Natalie walked briskly into the workshop. Dressed in a suit, she looked a little weary.
"Hey, Natalie. How did the meeting with Emotion Technology go?" It was okay, I guess. But we ended up talking about something else entirely.
Perching on the edge of the workbench, she flashed a mischievous grin. Apparently, Mr. Kirkland's son just got engaged.
His fiancée is some super elite Harvard University alum. Is that so?
I gave a non-committal response and continued my final inspection of the parts. Emotion Technology is a subsidiary of a major automotive manufacturer and an important client for us.
But I honestly couldn't care less about their son's engagement. Oh, come on, Martin. That's prime gossip. I'm in the middle of work. All right. Sorry for interrupting you, Mr. Factory Manager. She said this jokingly.
Though I'm not officially a factory manager, Natalie likes to tease me with that title since I prefer working in the factory. Peering at the prototype, Natalie frowned slightly. But you know, Kevin has this really arrogant attitude, so his fiancée might have a tough time.
During the last business meeting,
he had the nerve to say, "It must be such an honor to do business with a major company like ours," in this totally condescending way.
Really? But don't worry, the negotiations went fine. Seeing Natalie's reassuring smile, I felt a sense of pride in her reliability.
Anyway, Natalie, take a look at this new joint design.
It's looking really good.
The durability has improved by 30% compared to the previous version.
Really? That's amazing. This could make it possible for younger patients to use it too. They could keep playing sports and living actively.
Yeah, but there's still room for improvement. As the evening sunlight streamed into the workshop, my sister and I discussed the new possibilities. The thought of improving someone's life, even just a little, brought me a deep sense of fulfillment.
A few days later,
wearing my workwear, I was walking through the floor where the development department of our headquarters was located,
holding a prototype of our new artificial joint. That's when I saw her.
A woman approached from the opposite side of the corridor.
With long, slender limbs, a poised profile, and light, effortless steps.
Her presence exuded an elegance that seemed to belong to a painting. I couldn't help but stop in my tracks, captivated by her presence.
Noticing me, she stopped as well.
Her gaze swept over me, from head to toe, as though appraising my workwear. Then, she slowly opened her mouth.
Well,
I never expected to run into you here, Martin.
What? Oh. Don't tell me you don't remember me? It's Kimberly. We were in the same class in high school.
The moment she said her name, I remembered.
Ah.
I murmured, and Kimberly frowned at my response.
You're working in that outfit? Are you one of the subcontractors or something?
Even so, you should really be more mindful of where you are.
Honestly, aren't you embarrassed?
I mean, everyone in this building is an elite with high-status positions, and here you are walking around in a workwear.
You just screamed bottom of the barrel.
Kimberly's words were sweet like honey but laced with venom. I silently looked down at the prototype in my hands. As her sharp words echoed in my ears, memories from 12 years ago came flooding back. Back in high school, Kimberly and I were constantly competing for the top spot in our class rankings. She was the daughter of a pharmaceutical company executive. After school, a sleek black Mercedes would pull up at the school gates, and she would head to tutoring sessions with her chauffeur. Meanwhile, I skipped after-school activities every day to rush back to help my father at his small-town factory. The most vivid memory I have of Kimberly is from the spring of our senior year.
It was after the results of the midterm exams were released. Kimberly sat next to me, repeatedly looking over her school report.
This time, I had narrowly taken the top spot. Her delicate eyebrows drew closer together as she frowned.
Wow! Martin beat Kimberly. No way, the genius beauty lost to him? Hey, look! Martin's number one this time.
The classroom buzzed with excitement, and shouts of joy erupted from all around. Out of respect for Kimberly, some classmates whispered softly, while others clapped me on the back, cheering, "You did it." But the commotion only seemed to darken Kimberly's expression. At first, she let out a small chuckle, which grew louder and louder. Ignoring the stares of those around her, she set her school report down on the desk and looked at me. Her eyes were filled with open contempt.
Sorry, I just couldn't help laughing.
But you know, thinking about how meaningless these grades are just cracks me up.
After all, you're just going to take over your family's little factory, right?
Her words froze the classroom atmosphere in an instant.
The classmates who had been cheering fell silent, holding their breath. It's funny, isn't it? Factory work is bottom tier. A lifetime as the subcontractor of a subcontractor. It's a world where no one values you. And yet, you're trying so hard for something that insignificant.
Every word Kimberly spoke was like a thorn, cutting deeper. She looked down on my father's work, on the very existence of small-town factories, with complete disdain. It was clear to me that this was her genuine belief, an unfiltered reflection of the upper class's perception. Shaking off the memory, I returned to the present and gripped the prototype tightly in my hand. Kimberly continued her remarks, exuding an air of superiority.
I came here today for an interview with this company. Since I graduated from Harvard University, I'm certain I'll be hired.
When I looked into this company, I found that only a handful of graduates from Harvard University have ever been hired. But I was at the top of my class, and I also have an MBA.
On top of that, I've delivered results at my previous job. Everyone around me says it's practically guaranteed that I'll get the offer.
Her voice echoed through the skyscraper's hallway. Then, the sound of heavy footsteps interrupted the air. Kimberly quickly straightened up as Howard, the department head, appeared from around the corner.
"Good afternoon."
As she bowed deeply, her voice no longer carried the arrogance it had just moments before. Howard had been the one who conducted the interview she mentioned earlier.
After staring at Kimberly for a moment, Howard turned to me. "Mr. Anderson, should we reject this candidate?"
His calm voice carried down the hallway, but its impact was undeniable.
Kimberly's expression froze instantly. "What? Wait a second. Mr. Anderson. Are you saying Martin is?"
Kimberly's voice trembled. Her sleek black hair swayed wildly. She looked back and forth between Howard and me, both dressed in workwear, her eyes wide as if struggling to accept reality. "Your responses during the interview were excellent, and you made a good impression.
However, after listening to everything you've said just now, I believe we need to reconsider." "How dare you speak to Mr. Anderson, our chairman, like that?"
At those words, Kimberly stiffened. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead.
It was just a joke."
I was nervous, and some bad habits from my student days slipped out.
"Honestly, I don't look down on people in workwear. I fully understand the importance of those on the front lines. And besides, Mr. Anderson and I are classmates. I've always respected him."
Yes, that's it. What I said earlier was just a light-hearted joke. Kimberly desperately tried to explain herself, but Howard fixed her with a cold stare. "Kimberly, our company places emphasis on character when hiring.
We don't make decisions based solely on academic background or professional achievements."
Looking down on someone just because they're wearing workwear, that kind of mindset doesn't align with our corporate philosophy. Howard's words rang solemnly through the hallway. At his statement, the color drained from Kimberly's face. She turned to me again, slowly, as if trying to process what was happening. Her eyes were a mix of confusion and shock.
Why are you the chairman? How could the son of a small-town factory become the head of such a large company?"
There was no trace of arrogance left in her voice.
I silently returned her gaze. "It's true. My father's factory was small once. But things have changed." As sunlight poured through the windows, I began to speak.
I recounted the journey from a small-town factory to a company respected even by major corporations. My father, Miles, served as the factory manager at Anderson Industries, a small-town factory with a 30-year track record of producing automotive parts. It was a modest operation, with just over 10 employees, but the factory's precision machining skills were highly regarded, earning trust from major manufacturers. The factory excelled in challenging prototypes and small-lot production of specialized parts, and clients often said, "If Miles is on it, even the most difficult parts will come to life." One evening after school, as I helped out at the factory like always, my father muttered something while staring at a blueprint.
"Listen, Martin.
Small-town factories do important work.
We make things that matter and bring smiles to people's faces.
It's work to be proud of."
But my father sighed deeply, glancing around at the factory's equipment. Times are changing. Technical skill alone won't be enough to survive.
You'll need knowledge of management and a global perspective.
That's why you have to study hard.
Guided by his words, I threw myself into my studies while continuing to help out at the factory.
My father even set up a desk for me in the corner of the factory.
There, I worked through problems, accompanied by the steady hum of the machinery. While committing mathematical formulas to memory, I absorbed the techniques of the craftsman.
Over time, my grades began to rise. I eventually climbed to the top of my class. But my father never once encouraged me to leave the small-town factory behind.
The world looks down on small-town factories.
But they're wrong.
These factories are the heart of manufacturing.
I want your generation to prove that. That was my father's favorite saying.
But we were never given the time to see those words realized.
The summer of my senior year in high school, my father passed away in an accident.
During the delivery of new equipment to the factory, he was crushed beneath a machine.
By the time we reached the hospital, it was already too late.
The doctors said that years of overwork had taken a toll on his body, which hastened the end.
"Martin, is Dad never coming back?" Natalie, who was just a middle schooler at the time, asked me in a trembling voice.
I wrapped an arm around her shoulder, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. The moment the funeral ended, reality struck with ruthless force.
"Martin, what about the pending orders? Without Miles, can you still maintain the quality we're used to? Have you decided on a successor yet?"
Questions poured in from our clients. Just 3 days after my father's death, the factory had already plunged into chaos.
"Martin, if you don't take over, this factory won't survive."
One of the veteran craftsmen patted me on the shoulder.
"But isn't Martin smart enough to get into Harvard University?"
"Exactly.
You're young. Go chase your own dreams. The factory will work itself out."
The people from the neighborhood, my relatives, and my teachers.
Everyone offered me kind and thoughtful advice.
It was true, I had the grades to aim for Harvard University.
I was certain my father would have wanted that for me.
But every time I looked at the factory, a tight pain gripped my chest.
The blueprints left behind on my father's desk.
The unfinished prototypes. The promises made to our clients. And above all, the sight of the craftsmen working with everything they had. Their livelihoods, their families' futures, they were all tied to this factory.
To go to university or to take over the factory?
I stared at the university application form, torn with indecision.
One evening, Natalie came to the factory. Still in her school uniform, she was carrying her volleyball from practice. "Martin, I'm thinking of quitting the volleyball team. I'll help out at the factory instead."
Her quiet voice cut through the hum of the machinery in the factory. I was focused on checking a blueprint at my father's desk, but her words startled me, and I looked up. "I can handle the paperwork after school, or do any simple tasks.
And, now that Dad's gone, I'm worried about leaving everything to you.
I don't need an allowance, and I'll make my own lunches.
So, please let me help too."
This factory,
It's something precious to both of us, isn't it?
Her hands, clutching the volleyball tightly, were trembling. I shook my head vigorously. Then I grabbed her shoulders firmly.
No, Natalie. You need to follow your own dreams. But it's okay. I'll take over. I'll protect this factory no matter what.
As the sound of the machines filled the space around us, I made up my mind. It felt as if my father's presence, embedded in every corner of the factory, was watching over the two of us.
From that day on, my life changed completely.
I started arriving at the factory earlier than anyone else and stayed later than everyone else. I learned techniques from the craftsmen and began teaching myself the basics of accounting.
The day I tore up my university application form, I ran into Kimberly. What? You're not going to college? Are you really planning to waste your life at some small-town factory?
The contempt in her eyes only deepened, but instead of discouraging me, it pushed me forward. Someday, I vowed, I would turn this factory into a company I could be proud to show her.
6 months after graduating high school and taking over the factory,
I received a request from a major medical device manufacturer to produce a prototype for the joint of an artificial implant.
The task required precision down to the micron level, an incredibly challenging job.
They had approached numerous small-town factories, but no one had been willing to take it on.
Anderson Industries, we know it's a big ask, but could you please help us?
The representative bowed deeply, his sincerity clear.
Moved by his earnestness, I immediately agreed to take on the job.
For the next month, the entire factory devoted itself to the prototype. The craftsman and I spent sleepless nights redrawing blueprints and checking machining precision over and over again. The pile of failed parts grew higher and higher.
But no one gave up. Let's try it one more time. Let's adjust this part. The voices of the craftsmen echoed in the factory late into the night.
Finally, through sheer determination, the prototype was completed. When the representative held the finished product in his hands, his eyes widened in amazement. This precision is incredible. We've been turned down by so many companies for this design, and yet you've not only made it,
but with such outstanding quality. I can't believe such precise machining is even possible. Even our head office's engineers said it was impossible.
This is world-class technology.
The representative's hands trembled. The craftsmen looked on proudly, their faces filled with quiet satisfaction.
Word of the prototype spread quickly throughout the medical industry. Soon, we began receiving requests from major manufacturers one after another. Not just for artificial joints, but also for orthopedic implants and surgical precision instruments. Every product required advanced technology, or even the slightest error could be a matter of life or death.
But we never compromised.
We worked tirelessly, often through the night, to pursue precision beyond what was requested.
Even when clients said, "This is good enough," we continued refining the products. This unwavering dedication earned us the trust of the medical device industry.
3 years later, Tom, a senior executive from a major medical device manufacturer, visited our factory.
"Martin, how about partnering with us to establish a new company?
Your technology is world-class.
We want to create a new company specializing in medical devices and launch into the global market.
Of course.
We'd like Anderson Industries to be the cornerstone of our technological development."
The factory fell silent at his words.
This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
From a small local workshop to a company recognized worldwide. This was a significant step toward realizing my father's dream.
However, I had one condition. Please ensure that all of our craftsmen are employed in the new company. Tom immediately nodded.
Of course. They are the greatest asset to this endeavor.
And so, Blossom Precision Engineering was born.
After the launch of the new company, our sales skyrocketed. By combining the technical expertise we had developed as a small-town factory with the extensive sales network of a major corporation,
We steadily built a strong reputation in the medical device field.
5 years later, when the company went public, I was appointed chairman.
The employees all wanted me to continue as president.
But I chose to step back into a more supportive role as chairman so I could stay connected to the field.
Instead, Natalie became president.
Having studied business management in college, she was more than qualified for the role. Everyone trusted her leadership, and the transition went smoothly. Thus, Anderson Industries, once a humble small-town factory, grew into a globally renowned medical device manufacturer.
And that's the story.
After finishing my story, I shifted my gaze from Kimberly to Howard. In the distance, the hum of factory machinery echoed faintly.
Howard, I have only one request regarding Kimberly's hiring.
Please assess her fairly, based solely on her ability.
Her education.
Her past behavior, none of that matters. What she can do for this company now, that's the only standard to consider. At my words, Kimberly took a small, sharp breath. Howard showed a brief look of surprise but quickly composed himself.
Understood.
He bowed deeply, while beside him, Kimberly stared at me in a daze.
A month later, on a spring morning, cherry blossoms swirled around the company building as Kimberly arrived for her first day as an employee. Her expression, firm and determined, was nothing like it had been a month ago,
though she averted her eyes slightly when standing before Howard or me.
Kimberly will be assigned to the Development and Planning Department.
Kimberly's eyes lit up as she listened to Howard's presentation. The Development and Planning Department oversees everything from product planning to design and marketing, a critical division. It was the perfect place for her to leverage her analytical skills and expertise.
However, for the first 3 months, you'll be training in the factory. Understanding the field is the first step toward creating great products.
That's the philosophy of Blossom Precision Industries.
Yes, I'll do my best.
Kimberly stood tall as she responded. Her voice carried none of the arrogance it once did. Seeing her like this, Howard nodded with satisfaction.
6 months passed since Kimberly joined the company.
After completing her factory training, she had become a central figure in the Development and Planning Department.
This new model of artificial joint is expected to meet growing demand among younger demographics.
On the day of the new product presentation, she was leading a meeting in the conference room. Pointing to the data displayed on the screen, she spoke with conviction. In addition to the technical improvements from the factory staff, make it lighter, I propose expanding the target age group to people in their 40s. During my factory training, I had the chance to speak directly with orthopedic surgeons, and I learned that more young people are in need of artificial joints.
This is especially true for athletes, whose second careers can be deeply affected by these issues.
She presented voices from real patients and combined them with her market analysis. Her detailed proposal, incorporating both data and first-hand insights, had the executives deeply engaged. This product embodies Blossom Precision Industries' latest technology. With it, we can truly improve the lives of many people. The room fell silent.
The executives exchanged glances, nodding one after another. From a technical standpoint, it's feasible. Let's make it happen. Travis, a senior executive in the manufacturing department, spoke with authority and confidence.
Kimberly's face lit up, and she bowed deeply.
Thank you so much.
Watching her, I smiled quietly as Howard approached me.
Kimberly's changed a lot, hasn't she?
Yes. Since her time in the factory. She listens carefully to input from the field. Just the other day, I heard she stood on the production line with blueprints in hand, spending hours in technical discussions with the workers. Her analytical skills and her respect for the people on the ground together, they've made her an incredible asset.
Howard spoke with admiration. I simply smiled and nodded slightly.
After the presentation, attendees gradually left the conference room. Howard was the last to leave, saying, "Great work today," as the door closed behind him. The setting sun streamed into the now empty room. Through the large windows, I could see the factory, still alight with activity. As I examined the prototype of the new product in my hands, marveling at its precision, Kimberly appeared beside me. Through the glass of the display room, the factory building was visible. "You've really outdone yourself, Kimberly," I said, looking up from the prototype to address her. Surprised by the unexpected praise, she looked at me with a hint of astonishment. "The one who's outdone themselves is you." Kimberly spoke without turning to look at me, her gaze fixed firmly ahead. "In high school, you said, I'll make our factory big someday. You said you were studying for that. Determined to break free from being just a small-town factory and build a company that could compete on a global scale. And you've done it, all of it. In ways no one could have imagined." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though reminiscing. The profile of her face still bore traces of her high school self. "I remember it clearly, the day you tore up your college application." Her words brought the memory rushing back to me, vivid as if it had happened yesterday. I could still see the shock on Kimberly's face as she watched me tear the application form to pieces in our classroom. "What? You're not going to college? Are you really planning to spend your whole life in some small-town factory?" Her initial look of astonishment had quickly shifted to one of disdain. "You're smart enough to compete with me, but you're content with just being a cog in some factory? That's unbelievable. That choice is far too small-minded. It's not too late, you know. Go to college, join a top company, and you can have a better life." Her voice was confident, but there was an undertone of desperation I couldn't quite place. I shook my head quietly and replied, "Don't underestimate small-town factories." I said this while looking up at the equations still written on the blackboard. The only sound in the classroom was our breathing. Our factory has real skills. Even when major manufacturers give up on difficult parts, we make them happen. With the hands and minds of our craftsmen, we can create anything. That's the kind of pride we take in our work. It's the place my father has devoted his life to. But at the end of the day, it's just a subcontractor, isn't it? Taking orders, making parts they're told to make. What kind of future does a small factory like that have? You're wrong." I met her gaze directly. "I'm going to make our factory a company recognized around the world. I'll turn my father's and the craftsman's skills into something no one can look down on. Just because it's a small-town factory doesn't mean we should give up. In fact, small-town factories are where you find true craftsmanship. I'll prove that, no matter what it takes. And I'll learn everything I need to make it happen. Be realistic. Don't you feel embarrassed clinging to such childish dreams? A small-town factory gaining global recognition? That's a miracle that's never going to happen. It's not a dream." My voice rang out in the stillness of the classroom. I reached into my bag and pulled out a blueprint for an automotive part. Spreading it out on the desk, I said, "See this blueprint? It's for a part no other factory would dare attempt. But I'll make it. Every day, I work on these blueprints, run calculations, and build prototypes. Just because it's a small-town factory doesn't mean we can't succeed. My father always said that in craftsmanship, there's no such thing as high or low. All that matters is commitment and pride." Kimberly remained silent, staring at me. For the first time, I felt as though I saw a new emotion flicker in her eyes. "Commitment and pride," she murmured, standing by the window. "I've been thinking about it a lot. Why do I study so hard? Going to cram school, acing tests, getting into a prestigious university. But then what? My father is an executive at a pharmaceutical company, and my mother is the daughter of a doctor. From the moment I was born, my path was laid out for me, an elite university, a top-tier company. Everyone around me says, Kimberly is so smart, getting into a top company will be easy for her. But no one's ever asked me what I want.
what I want to do, how I want to live. My life feels like it's been scripted by someone else. School, career, everything, it's all according to my parents' expectations.
Her sigh filled the quiet classroom. I looked into her eyes.
Your world and mine, they're not so different.
In the classroom after school, Kimberly lifted her head in surprise at the sound of my quiet murmur.
What? Think about it. People around me say the same thing. The son of a factory manager will inherit the factory. No need for education, as long as he learns the trade.
People assume they know our lives and make decisions for us, whether it's a small-town factory or an executive's daughter, it's the same.
The sound of Kimberly's sharp intake of breath broke the silence. That's why I think the most important thing is choosing for yourself.
Whether it aligns with people's expectations or goes against them.
What matters is that it's your choice. That's what life really is, don't you think?
My words resonated in the stillness of the classroom.
The torn pieces of my application form lay in the trash, bathed in the orange glow of the sunset. Kimberly gazed at me intently.
The usual arrogance in her eyes was nowhere to be found.
I want that too,
she said, her voice trembling.
I want to choose my own path.
Not live for my parents' expectations, but for what I truly want.
I want to find something I'm passionate about, not something dictated by being the daughter of this family. Even if it's a choice no one expects.
Her voice was quiet, but it carried a resolute determination. It was as if a long-locked door in her heart had finally started to open. In the empty classroom, our shadows quietly crossed. In that moment, our resolve aligned.
I still clearly remember what you said, Martin.
I've held on to that determination ever since and worked hard to get to where I am today.
Kimberly's words snapped me back to reality. Outside the window, the lights of the factory were beginning to flicker on, one by one.
That's why, when I saw you in workwear, I couldn't help but get upset, because I've worked so hard.
I got into Harvard University, earned my MBA, and built a track record.
And yet, where did the "I'll build a company that stands out on the global stage" determination from back then go? You were still wearing workwear, doing fieldwork.
I ended up saying condescending things without thinking.
Her voice trembled as her fingers gripped the edge of the desk tightly.
I assumed your dream had failed and said something cruel. But in reality, it was me who didn't understand. You've clearly realized your dream. While I ended up working at a company where my father had influence.
There, they treated me like I'd leave in 3 years because I'm a woman.
So they never gave me meaningful work. In planning meetings, I wasn't allowed to speak. Every day, I served tea and made copies.
Even the qualifications I worked hard to get were dismissed as a hobby for a studious woman.
She laughed bitterly. Even so, I put up with it. But one day, I realized.
If I kept living my life on the tracks laid by my parents,
fulfilling someone else's expectations, I'd be betraying the promise I made in that classroom back then. That's when I decided to quit and find something new.
She turned to face me. Her eyes held the same determined light they had back in high school.
I heard Blossom Precision Industries was all about merit. That it's a company where anyone can rise as long as they have the will and ability, regardless of gender. So I decided to take a chance here, and I applied. Not because of connections or academic background,
but to prove myself on my own merits. The intensity in her gaze made my chest tighten slightly.
Yeah. In our company, academic background doesn't matter. If you have the skills, you can take on any position, in any department,
I said casually as I picked up the prototype.
Exactly. And you know, I'm really enjoying myself now.
Work has become so fulfilling. Her voice, unusually lively, echoed in the room. Then, she hesitated slightly. After a moment's pause, as if gathering her courage, she continued.
That's why I found the strength to turn down the marriage proposal.
Her words made me look up, surprised.
Wait, marriage proposal? Yeah.
My parents were trying to set me up with the son of the CEO of Emotion Technology.
Emotion Technology? That's a subsidiary of a major automaker, right?
My sister often visits them for business.
Come to think of it,
Natalie was talking about how their CEO's son recently got engaged to some ultra-elite woman from Harvard University. Ultra-elite, that's such an exaggeration. Her face clouded as she looked down. Clenching her hands tightly, she took a deep breath as if steeling herself, then looked directly at me.
Martin, would you mind talking with me about this sometime? There's a nice restaurant I know. It's an Italian place with a beautiful night view. About 15 minutes by car from here. If it's not a bother, maybe we could. Her voice, devoid of its usual arrogance, was slightly unsteady.
She avoided looking directly at me, repeatedly rearranging the papers in front of her. Her flushed cheeks and wandering gaze were expressions I'd never seen from her back in high school.
Sure. I don't mind. I'm free the night after tomorrow. Does that work for you?
Trying to hide my own nervousness, my voice rose slightly. Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Relief spread across her face as I nodded lightly.
The silence in the display room seemed to amplify the sound of my heartbeat.
It felt as though we'd been transported back to high school, caught in an unfamiliar tension.
The day of our meeting.
Kimberly and I arrived at a restaurant on the top floor of a 30-story hotel. I'd heard it was a high-end Italian place, but its elegance exceeded my expectations, leaving me feeling slightly out of place. The sophisticated interior and soft lighting created a serene atmosphere. The tables were adorned with crisp white linens, and the glasses sparkled gently. Beyond the large windows, the city's nightscape spread out like scattered jewels.
This view, it's so calming,
Kimberly said as she took her seat. There was a nervousness in her demeanor, unlike her usual confident self. It might have been the first time I'd seen this side of her, even after knowing her since high school.
I'd passed by this restaurant many times before, but never did I imagine I'd be here with Kimberly. Do you come here often?
Yes.
Whenever I have something important to discuss, this is where I go.
Those words made my heartbeat quicken slightly. Kimberly, still gazing out the window, reached for her glass of water. Her fingers seemed to tremble faintly.
So, what is it you wanted to talk about?
After the waiter poured the wine and walked away, I gently broke the silence. The soft ambience of the restaurant flowed between us like a quiet current.
But then it happened. Well, Kimberly?
What a surprise running into you here. A low, sharp voice rang out, making Kimberly stiffen instantly. When I turned around, there he was, Kevin, the son of Mr. Kirkland, CEO of Emotion Technology.
Dressed sharply in a suit, Kevin exuded an aura of sophistication, though his gaze betrayed hostility as it landed on me. Beneath his polished demeanor lingered a dangerous edge.
With a knowing smile, Kevin placed a hand on Kimberly's shoulder.
The restaurant's lighting caught the gleam of his expensive wristwatch as he spoke. My father told me. He said you're talking about breaking off the engagement. Is it because of him? Surely you wouldn't cheat on me with some lowly subordinate, would you? The veiled threat in his voice was unmistakable. No.
He's my supervisor at work.
I just needed advice, that's all.
Kimberly's voice quivered. Her fingers, tightly gripping the pristine white tablecloth, betrayed her unease.
Oh, really? Then why don't I be the one to give you advice instead?
Kevin slid the hand on her shoulder down toward her waist.
Ah! Kimberly let out a small cry. Glances from nearby tables were cast in our direction. The tranquil ambience of the upscale restaurant shifted abruptly, becoming tense and stifling.
Overcome by a chill that crawled down my spine, I instinctively stood up. Grasping Kevin's hand firmly, I pulled it away from Kimberly. The tablecloth shifted slightly with my movement. Can't you see that she doesn't want this? I spoke calmly but with unmistakable force. Kevin's expression darkened immediately. And who the hell are you? Do you even realize who you're talking to? His voice dripped with arrogance and anger. I know who you are. Kevin, the son of Mr. Kirkland, the president of Emotion Technology, right? My sister, Natalie, seems to have been working with your company on a deal. Huh? Natalie? Oh, that makes sense now. You must be that small-time factory owner trying to act like you belong. Kevin's face relaxed briefly at the mention of Natalie's name, but he quickly smirked, casting a condescending gaze down at me. The sharp collar of his expensive suit accentuated his arrogance even more. I know all about you. Blossom Precision's CEO Mr. Anderson, a nobody who crawled his way up from some backwater factory. Small-time operators like you really have no place getting ideas above your station. Thinking you could pursue Kimberly, the daughter of a prestigious family? Know your place. People like you from the lower rungs don't belong in our world. It's laughable. His cutting words left Kimberly pale. The wine in the glass on the table rippled slightly. The restaurant lighting cast large shadows of us against the wall. Releasing his hand, I stepped forward slightly, positioning myself between him and Kimberly. And then I said, "Lower rungs?" My voice was steady, calm, but carried an unshakable resolve. Are you saying that to your company, we're just another insignificant subcontractor? Sure, we're smaller in scale. But the products we create are built with pride and precision. That alone gives them value. Ha! Value? Don't kid yourself. With enough money, anyone can replicate your so-called precision nut. Do you really believe that? I interrupted Kevin before he could finish speaking. Every day, the engineers at my company pour their passion into their work. They take immense pride in what they do. And yet, you would reduce their dedication, their craft, their very essence, to nothing more than something money can buy? Shut up. Don't you dare talk to me like that. Kevin's voice grew louder. The calm confidence he had displayed earlier had vanished from his face. Someone like you, just a lowly factory worker, acting all high and mighty. Money is all it takes to shut you up and put you in your place. Is that so? Then it seems continuing any business with your company would be pointless. Kevin, I'll be terminating all contracts with Emotion Technology. My voice cut through the tension in the air like a blade. For a moment, Kevin's arrogant expression faltered, replaced by a flicker of shock. What? His voice wavered slightly. But he quickly masked his unease, regaining his smug composure. Terminating the contracts? Do you have any idea what you're saying? We're the biggest company in the industry. Our annual transactions alone amount to billions of dollars. Your company's revenue, what? 30% of it depends on us, right? Cut ties with us. And how do you plan to keep your company afloat? A little factory like yours won't last 6 months without us. Kevin sneered, his laugh dripping with mockery. It was true, Emotion Technology was one of our biggest clients. Losing them would be a significant blow to our revenue. I understood that. But still, I don't care. Yes, losing your business will hurt our sales, but there are more important things than money. I refuse to do business with a company that disrespects people like this. My voice was steady, cold as ice, and it resonated in the quiet of the restaurant. Kevin's face turned bright red. You've got to be kidding me. Don't get carried away. Our company's annual revenue is $20 million. You're just a newcomer who's barely been in the industry for a decade, and you dare talk to me like that? Fine. I'll make sure you can't survive in this industry. No matter how good your technology is, without connections, you're done. Kevin pulled out his phone and deliberately tilted it so I could see the screen.
Want me to show you? Here's my contact list. See these?
Big medical device companies: M Corporation, B Corporation in the US,
And S Corporation in Germany. You know them, don't you?
all the companies your little factory has been dying to work with. One message from me: avoid doing business with Blossom Precision Industries and your orders will be cut in half.
Am I wrong?
With a cruel grin, he dangled the smartphone in his hand.
So? Still want to play tough? You still have a chance.
Get on your knees and apologize right here, and I might let it slide. Oh, and of course,
You'll give up on Kimberly.
what kind of lowlife dares to touch my fiancée?
Stop it. Kimberly's voice suddenly rang out. Kevin, please. Don't drag Blossom Precision Industries into this. I'll take back the engagement annulment. Just don't cause any more trouble.
Her trembling voice carried desperation as she pleaded with him. Her distress twisted Kevin's face into something grotesque, a mixture of triumph and cruelty.
Oh, so you finally get it? That's right, know your place.
Marrying someone of my status, smiling for the cameras at parties, that's your role. Your skills and abilities mean nothing. You and I just need to walk the paths that have been set for us.
That's how you'll have a stable life.
Kimberly clenched her teeth, her fists trembling at her sides. Kevin smirked, now fully convinced of his victory.
Let's do this, then.
If you do exactly as I say, I'll let Blossom Precision Industries off the hook.
First, cancel the engagement annulment. Second, cut all ties with this upstart here. And third, at next week's industry party, I'll formally present you as my fiancé. That's the life you're meant to live. Understand? Kevin's voice grew louder, his arrogance reaching its peak.
Tears welled up in Kimberly's eyes. As I opened my mouth to turn the situation around, a figure emerged from the back of the restaurant, hurrying toward us.
It was none other than Mr. Kirkland, CEO of Emotion Technology. Kevin,
What foolishness are you spouting?
Mr. Kirkland's furious voice reverberated through the entire restaurant.
Conversations around us came to an abrupt halt, and a heavy silence took over. Then, Mr. Kirkland slowly approached me and bowed deeply. The back of his luxurious suit bent low, as if weighed down by his apology. I sincerely apologize, Mr. Anderson.
My son's behavior has been utterly inexcusable. I am truly sorry.
His voice carried the weight of genuine remorse, and the sight of his bent back in his finely tailored suit was striking.
Dad, why are you apologizing to this nobody? Kevin persisted, unwilling to give up. Arrogance still lingered in his expression. Silence.
Without the technology of Blossom Precision Industries, our company's flagship product couldn't even be made.
Mr. Kirkland's icy rebuke rang out, cold and cutting.
The voice with which he scolded his son carried none of his usual calm and gentle demeanor. Kevin seemed at a loss for words, staring at his father as if seeing him in a new light for the first time.
From the back of Mr. Kirkland, an overwhelming sense of tension emanated. Especially that complex component, its precision is unmatched by any other company. Frankly, I doubt anyone but Blossom Precision Industries can produce it. Our new product launch next month depends entirely on their technology.
If this contract falls through, it's not just our future plans that are in jeopardy, the very survival of our company is at stake.
No, that can't be.
Kevin's eyes widened in shock at his father's words. Mr. Kirkland fixed a stern gaze on his son.
You really don't understand anything, do you? As the son of the president, you can't even grasp the value of a partner company with such an important relationship? But you never listen to my opinions anyway, do you? Kevin's voice trembled, stripped of its usual arrogance. Just once, I wanted to do things my way.
When I tried to start a new business, when I said I wanted to study abroad, when I proposed changing the factory's hiring policies, every single time, you shot me down.
You're too young, you need to learn more, you said. He laughed bitterly. In the end, it didn't matter what I did.
My entire life has been scripted by you, my education, my assignments, my promotions, even my marriage partner.
I'd been nothing but a puppet, forced to dance to your tune. There wasn't a single decision I was allowed to make for myself. That's why I stopped caring about anything.
His words dripped with years of resignation and frustration over not being able to live his own life. Mr. Kirkland let out a deep sigh as he listened to his son's confession. In his stern expression, there was a hint of regret.
Perhaps I was too forceful in imposing my ways.
I didn't give you enough opportunities to voice your opinions or make your own decisions.
That
was my mistake. After a brief silence, Mr. Kirkland continued, his voice calm but firm.
That said, it doesn't excuse you from looking down on others, judging people solely by their education or family background, filling the void in your heart with arrogance toward others. That's wrong.
For the first time, his voice carried warmth.
The world isn't that simple.
Skills, effort, sincerity, everyone lives with their own sense of pride. I may have limited your potential, but you've denied the potential of others.
And that might be an even greater mistake.
The weight of his words hung heavily in the silence of the restaurant. Mr. Anderson built a world-class technology from a small-town factory.
And yet, here you are, using your family's company as a crutch. You need to reflect on yourself. Starting tomorrow, you'll be working on the factory floor.
You'll learn firsthand just how foolish it is to look down on others. Mr. Kirkland's voice grew more resolute. Kevin, who once looked down on everyone, now knelt miserably, his shoulders slumped.
Mr. Anderson,
Mr. Kirkland said as he turned back to me and bowed deeply.
This situation is entirely the result of my failings as a parent.
Please, consider my son's foolishness a reflection of my own shortcomings. I beg you not to terminate our contract. The chandelier's light glinted off his bowed head.
Very well. We will continue the contract. However, I have one condition: the engagement between Kimberly and Kevin must be called off.
At my words, Mr. Kirkland's shoulders sagged in relief.
Yes, I understand. Thank you, truly. He bowed deeply once more.
After a brief silence, Kimberly spoke quietly.
Kevin, I know it's hard for you too.
Feeling like you have no choice but to follow the path your parents set for you. Because you're the heir of a prestigious family, because you're the successor.
Living a life where you can't make your own choices. I understand that feeling very well. Kevin's expression darkened slightly. We're the same, you know.
I'm expected to live as the daughter of a distinguished family, and you as the heir.
We're both crushed under the weight of others' expectations.
Even our marriage was arranged for our parents' convenience.
But that's not the way to live.
Both you and I have the right to live true to our own hearts. The company doesn't have to reflect only your father's will, you can bring your own ideas to the table.
And marriage, too. You should follow your own heart.
Kimberly gazed out at the glittering nightscape as she spoke. Her words seemed to strike a chord, as Kevin's eyes glistened slightly. I learned that from Martin.
It's not just about skills or ability, it's about the importance of living authentically. Kevin, why don't you try it too?
If we marry as our parents planned, neither of us will find true happiness.
Kimberly.
Kevin's voice, for the first time, was soft. You've got guts, I'll give you that.
Breaking away from your parents' path and forging your own.
I always thought all I had to do was inherit the company and marry the person my parents chose.
But listening to you, I feel like I want to take control of my own life for once. Kevin let out a quiet sigh.
For the first time, he revealed a genuine expression, free of any pretense, before rising to his feet.
Martin. I didn't realize Blossom Precision Industries technology was the lifeline of our company. No, I didn't want to realize it.
I was just a sheltered fool, hiding under my parents' protection and acting smug. I didn't understand the struggles of the field workers or the pride of the engineers.
From now on, I'll start from the factory floor.
I'll feel the air of the workshop and understand the engineer's passion firsthand.
I promise I'll never look down on anyone again. I'm truly sorry. Kevin bowed deeply once more, then slowly straightened up.
In his eyes was a newfound determination.
Kevin left the restaurant alongside his father.
Their retreating figures somehow seemed refreshed. As the two departed, Kimberly and I sat back down at the table.
Wow. I never expected you to protect me like that.
Of course. It's my job as chairman to protect my valuable employees.
Chairman, huh?
Kimberly smiled faintly, her expression soft.
You haven't changed, have you?
Just like in high school.
What do you mean?
The way you stay true to your beliefs, no matter what. Kimberly's profile, bathed in soft light, carried a gentle, almost tender expression. Seeing this side of her for the first time, my heart began to pound.
Well then, since my engagement annulment is officially settled, how about a toast?
Oh, right.
Let's do that.
The red wine in the glass rippled softly between us. Beyond the window, the city's nightscape shimmered with lights.
1 year later, Blossom Precision Industries was experiencing unprecedented success.
This quarter's sales have reached 137% compared to the same period last year.
Kimberly's new product lineup has been particularly strong. Sales of artificial joints for younger demographics, those under 40, have exceeded expectations by more than double.
We're also seeing a surge in international inquiries. Howard reported, and the meeting room erupted in applause.
Graphs on the screen all trended upward, a testament to the company's growth. Howard glanced at Kimberly and smiled. This success is all thanks to the incredible skills of our team. I'm merely a messenger for their outstanding work.
From my seat, I smiled to myself. The once elitist Kimberly was now shoulder to shoulder with our engineers, deeply involved in product development. Her presence had brought a fresh, invigorating energy to the company.
One quiet afternoon,
as I was tidying up the meeting room, my sister Natalie approached, looking unusually uneasy.
Hey, can I talk to you for a second? It's about Kevin from Emotion Technology. I raised my eyes from the documents, curious.
I'd heard that Kevin, as ordered by his father, was now working on the factory floor as an ordinary employee.
So, Kevin asked me out to dinner.
What?
Kevin? With you?
My voice cracked from sheer shock. I quickly cleared my throat, adjusting my posture.
Did you turn him down?
I haven't answered yet.
But?
Natalie hesitated, a faint blush rising to her cheeks as she fidgeted with the edge of the table.
Recently, I've been talking to him a lot. When we meet on the factory floor, he listens to my ideas so seriously. And he's completely different now.
Different?
Yeah. He used to be so arrogant, remember? But now, he's so genuine, even humble.
The other day, he showed me his hands, all covered in cuts and bruises, and laughed, saying, "Look what a mess they are."
It was kind of endearing.
Natalie's voice grew softer and softer. And then, just recently, he implemented a process improvement I suggested. When it worked out, he told everyone.
It's all thanks to Natalie.
He said it right in front of the team. I couldn't help but smile at her growing enthusiasm.
Well, why don't you go, then? Really? You think it's okay?
Of course.
If you want to go, then go.
Natalie's face lit up with a bright smile before she darted out of the meeting room. I watched her leave, momentarily stunned. Just then, there was a knock on the door.
Kimberly stepped in. "Martin, are you still tidying up?"
My work just wrapped up, so I thought I'd lend you a hand.
"Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I'd appreciate the help." My slightly flustered response earned a steady gaze from Kimberly. "Is something bothering you? If you'd like, I can listen."
Not exactly a problem, but it seems like Natalie has been getting approached by Kevin lately.
"Ah."
Kimberly nodded knowingly and flashed a sly smile. Kevin told me himself. He said he's liked Natalie for a long time.
"No way. He likes my sister?"
Yes. Over time, as the two of you continued working together, he became drawn to her.
I caught my breath.
But Kevin once called me nothing more than some small-town factory guy.
I can't imagine him being interested in my sister. That's because of our engagement.
He tried to suppress his feelings for Natalie by convincing himself she was just a factory girl.
Not a match for someone like me.
That's why, in the heat of the moment, he insulted you.
Hearing the truth, my jaw nearly dropped.
Kimberly, watching my reaction, chuckled softly.
Are you that shocked?
Or are you just upset that your precious little sister might be swept away by someone?
That's not it.
Kimberly, now teasing me like she used to in our school days, gave me a playful, knowing look. Sunlight filtered through the conference room window, softly illuminating her hair.
Hey, Martin.
Suddenly, Kimberly's voice took on a different tone. Her teasing expression disappeared, replaced by a sincere gaze.
I've always felt like I was losing to you.
Back in high school, competing over grades, and now. Seeing how passionate you are about your work and how brave you are in choosing your own life.
I couldn't measure up in anything. That's why I couldn't be honest with you.
Her voice trembled. A faint blush rose to her cheeks. She took a deep breath, gathering her resolve, before continuing.
I acted like I was looking down on you because I was too aware of you.
I wanted to get closer but couldn't.
Martin, I've liked you since high school. But I was scared that if I confessed, you might hate me, so I couldn't be honest about my feelings.
What? Wait, what? The unexpected confession made my heart leap. The atmosphere in the conference room changed in an instant.
I've never been able to say it. My pride kept getting in the way.
But after working here, seeing the world you've built, I realized there's no need to hide it anymore.
Kimberly.
Her eyes, glistening with unshed tears, shone in the sunlight streaming through the window. Her hand brushed against mine on the desk. A soft, warm touch, but steady and sure.
I've loved you too, Kimberly.
At those words, her fingers quivered softly.
Ever since I decided to take over the factory, you've always been on my mind. Taking over the factory was my choice.
But part of me wanted to prove myself to you. You, with your sharp mind and unyielding pride, yet your incredible dedication. I wanted to create technology that could stand tall on the world stage so I could meet you again with confidence.
Tears rolled down Kimberly's cheeks. I gently pulled her into my arms.
The sunlight poured brightly into the conference room, casting a warm glow. Outside, the factory hummed with its usual rhythm. Somehow, the sound felt softer, kinder than before. We all struggle to live true to ourselves. I, as the son of a factory owner. Kimberly, as the daughter of a distinguished family. Kevin, as the heir of a prestigious corporation. All of us were nearly crushed under the weight of expectations. But deep down, we each had a desire to follow our own paths.
The key is having the courage to be honest with yourself.
I chose to inherit the factory and aim for technology that could compete globally. Kimberly chose to step off the path her parents had laid out and prove herself through her own merit. Kevin decided to shed his status and pride to start anew by learning from the ground up. Living according to someone else's script will never be as fulfilling as walking your own path. Even if it's a detour, that road will lead to a life that feels truly yours.
18 grand a month? Seriously? That's insane. I was at a loss for words.
It was a mixer at the weekend. I only came as a favor to a coworker, a simple making up the numbers, and yet here I was, getting this blatant criticism thrown at me.
You're not temping or working part-time, right?
Being a full-time employee with that salary is ridiculous.
What about your future?
I mean, even if you get a girlfriend, you probably can't afford to pay for dates. Maria, with her glitzy nails, and Nicole, with her curled hair and heavy makeup, were laughing across the table. The table was lined with beers and cocktails, but I couldn't bring myself to take a single sip. Their looks, a mix of amusement and disdain, cut through me, leaving a chill running down my back. Sorry, I just remembered something I need to take care of. As I stood up, Maria let out a scoff through her nose, glaring up at me with her elbows still resting on the table.
Fine, but leave your share of the bill. We're not covering for you. As if on cue, Nicole leaned over to whisper, right?
Totally useless. Silently, I pulled out a few notes from my wallet and placed them on the edge of the table. This was supposed to be a fun night, but it couldn't have gone more wrong. Kyle, my dependable senior colleague, leaned over and muttered, "Sorry, Tyler."
But I didn't feel like saying a word.
I just wanted to get out of there as fast as I could. That was all that consumed my mind.
But a few days later,
when I showed up at work, their faces turned pale.
No way. But you said your salary was only 18 grand a month.
It was the beginning of their downfall.
My name is Tyler.
I'm a 29-year-old guy working at a major company in Tokyo. I belong to a department that handles overseas projects. Most of the work is low profile, consisting of mundane clerical tasks.
So I usually don't stand out. Even in this unassuming role, I find a sense of purpose.
I handle things like sorting documents from overseas, data entry, and proofreading reports.
Knowing that these small, precise tasks keep projects running smoothly makes it impossible to cut corners.
Even the tiniest mistake could lead to major issues down the line. Some may call it dull, but I firmly believe that being the backbone that supports the company is essential. That belief is what drives me to take pride in my work. While my job might not appear flashy, I'm convinced it will lead to bigger results someday. Outside of work, my life is just as low-key, mostly going back and forth between the office and my apartment. While I don't mind hanging out with friends, I've never been a fan of events like meeting strangers over drinks.
Yet, somehow. Tyler, come on. I'm begging you.
Last Friday, during lunch at the company cafeteria, Kyle, who's a year older than me, clasped his hands together as if praying. Kyle works in the sales department, separate from mine, but he's always been like an older brother to me. Cheerful and sociable, with a wide network of connections.
Unlike me, he thrives in social settings, absolutely loving drinking parties and events. I'm not exactly the life of the party, I said while eating cold noodles. Kyle laughed. I'm not asking you to be the entertainer.
We're short on people, man.
Someone bailed on us last minute.
It's a mixer with women from our company, different departments.
So you probably don't know them.
They're all receptionists, and I hear they're gorgeous.
Don't you want to chat with some cute girls for a change?
From the way Kyle asked, it was clear that saying no would only make things complicated later. More importantly, he was a senior colleague who had helped me out many times, both professionally and personally. Coldly brushing him off with something like, "Why don't you just go by yourself?" didn't sit right with me.
All right. But don't expect too much from me, okay?
Half-heartedly, I gave in, and so, with little enthusiasm, I found myself heading into the weekend.
On Saturday night, I arrived at the designated restaurant to find Kyle waiting by the entrance.
They're supposed to be receptionists. So I bet they're all pretty flashy.
Just relax and have fun, all right?
The staff led us to a semi-private booth at the back of the restaurant, where 3 women were already seated. At first glance, they were all undeniably beautiful. Among them, the woman sitting in the center, Maria, immediately stood out as someone who clearly enjoyed making herself look good. Her curled hair, sparkly nails, and glittery eyeshadow were impossible to miss. The designer bag she carried only added to her commanding presence.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and this is my colleague, Tyler. Thanks for joining us tonight, Kyle said with his usual lively charm.
Maria responded with a bright smile, I'm Maria. Beside her were Nicole, equally flashy, and Michelle, who seemed more reserved. All 3 were in the same company but in different departments, so although they had met, this was the first time they had ever talked properly.
Nice to meet you. I'm Tyler, I said with a polite bow. Maria's eyes swept over me from head to toe, and she gave a faint smile. It was the kind of smile that hinted at an unspoken evaluation, and it made me uneasy. For now, we raised our glasses for a toast.
Cheers! Kyle called out enthusiastically, leading the group as we clinked glasses and took our first sips. Barely a moment later, Maria took control of the conversation.
So, Kyle, you're in sales, right? You must make good money? Well, it's all right.
I spend most of my time out meeting clients, so I get a little commission here and there.
Nothing crazy, though. Kyle can respond to these salary questions with ease and wit. He must be used to it.
Meanwhile, I sat back, quietly listening, once again reminded of how out of place I felt in settings like this. And then, as expected, the attention turned to me.
What about you, Tyler? What kind of work do you do?
I know you're at the same company, but we're in different departments, so I'm curious. Maria's eyes gleamed with a sharp, piercing light.
Nicole leaned forward eagerly, adding, something to do with overseas stuff, right?
Michelle, on the other hand, looked down awkwardly, as though she wanted to disappear.
Yeah, I mostly do behind-the-scenes clerical work. It's nothing special. But you're in the overseas division, right?
Yeah, sometimes my job involves working with overseas clients, but it's just standard office work.
Maria's lips curled into a grin. So, what does standard mean, exactly?
Letting out a small sigh, I answered honestly, if we're talking salary, it's around 18 grand a month. At that moment, Maria and Nicole exchanged wide-eyed looks before bursting into laughter.
18 grand? Are you serious? And you're a full-time employee? Not temping or part-timing?
Maria's voice was filled with obvious mockery.
Nicole chimed in, laughing, I mean, you'd have to live with your parents to make that work, right? The atmosphere grew tense as all eyes focused on me.
Kyle tried to intervene, saying, hey, everyone's situation is different, you know, but Maria wasn't letting up.
So, what are you going to do? With that kind of salary, can you even afford dates if you get a girlfriend? Seriously, this is unbelievable. The part-timers working for me probably make more money than you. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Before Kyle could finish his sentence, Maria cut him off, propping her elbow on the table and looking down at me as she spoke.
And honestly, at 29 years old, only making 18 grand a month? That's pretty rough. Do you even have a plan for your future? Because I'd never date a guy like that.
Her words were sharper than I had anticipated. As I sat there in silence, Nicole smirked and nodded in agreement.
Right?
Totally. Michelle, the only one who looked slightly uncomfortable, gave a weak, apologetic smile but said nothing.
By this point, I couldn't take it anymore. The humiliation was unbearable.
If income is such a big deal to them, I honestly wish they wouldn't bother attending mixers in the first place.
Hey, Maria, I know you've been drinking, but don't you think you're going a little too far? Kyle tried to step in, but Maria just scoffed and fired back. Oh, come on. It's the truth.
Besides,
Being blunt like this saves everyone's time.
At that point, I realized there was no point in staying any longer and decided to leave. I finished my drink in one gulp, grabbed my wallet, and stood up. Sorry, I just remembered something I need to take care of.
I'll head out now. Oh? Then just leave if you want. But make sure to leave your share of the bill. We don't want to lose out.
Maria said with a cold smirk, exchanging glances with Nicole before muttering, "Oh, so useless." Kyle called out, "Hey, Tyler, wait a second," but I was already determined to get out of there as fast as possible. I placed some cash on the table and said, "Sorry, Kyle, see you later," then left the restaurant. As I walked away, I could hear Maria laughing behind me, saying, "Seriously, what was even the point of him showing up?" Hilarious. Honestly, I can't say I don't feel frustrated or ashamed, but more than that, I feel like getting involved is just a waste of time. When I stepped outside, the weekend crowd and humid night air were a far cry from the stifling atmosphere of the restaurant. The sticky humidity and the noisy bustle of the streets clung to my skin. I decided to catch a train home and started walking briskly. Then I heard the sound of footsteps running toward me from behind. "Tyler, wait." I turned around to see Michelle, flustered and out of breath, hurrying toward me. She clutched a small bag and wore a modest outfit, looking slightly panicked. I'm sorry. Maria went too far." "Oh, you don't have to apologize. It's not your fault. I just wasn't a good match for the group," I said with a wry smile. To be honest, Michelle hadn't said or done anything hurtful. She just sat there looking awkward. But I laughed back there, and I couldn't say anything to stop it. "I feel awful for not doing anything. Please don't be upset." She bowed her head apologetically. I responded, "It's fine, really. Don't worry about it. You should probably get back, though. Or Maria might get mad." "You're right. Sorry again." "Excuse me." Michelle gave another small bow before heading back toward the restaurant. I watched her small figure disappear into the crowd, then continued walking toward the subway station. I got home before 10 p.m. After taking a shower, I grabbed some iced tea from the fridge and stared blankly at my phone. That's when Kyle called. "Hey, Tyler. I'm sorry about earlier. I'd heard Maria could be tough, but I didn't think she'd be that bad." Kyle sounded apologetic, with a hint of exasperation in his voice. "Don't worry about it. It's not your fault, Kyle. And sorry for leaving so suddenly." "No, seriously, it's fine. I feel bad for inviting you and letting that happen. But honestly, Maria would have treated anyone the same way. She's all about money. Even after you left, she kept going on about how you are boring and probably earns next to nothing. It was ridiculous." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Yeah, I guess mixers just aren't for me. Don't invite me to any more for a while, okay? Got it. I'm sorry again. But don't let it get to you, alright? You don't have much to do with those two at work anyway, so just let it go." "I will." Michelle did apologize, but honestly, I just don't think I have any connection with those people. When I said that, Kyle seemed slightly relieved. "Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry again, Tyler. See you next week at work." After hanging up, I leaned back on the couch in the living room. I never thought a weekend night could be this draining. Attending a so-called mixer, only to be insulted, is not something I ever want to experience again. But it's over now. At least Kyle won't be inviting me to anything like that anytime soon, and I probably won't run into those three again. We work in different departments, and it's not like we run into each other often in such a big office. Or so I thought, until a few days later. A company-wide email announced a major meeting to unveil a new project for the overseas division, involving subsidiaries and high-ranking executives.
It seems like this meeting is going to be truly massive.
Apparently, it will include international guests and executives, with a presentation taking place in a large rented hall.
And I was one of the people scheduled to present.
And then, the day of the company-wide meeting arrived. The venue was a spacious hall in a downtown building.
At the entrance,
I could see staff from not only our headquarters but also affiliated subsidiaries and what appeared to be temp staff, all mixed together. I wore the company-issued name badge around my neck, carrying my materials as I made my way to my assigned seat. A quick glance toward the front of the hall revealed a few familiar figures near the side of the stage. Bright, curled hair and flashy, painted nails.
It was Maria and Nicole.
The two seemed to be helping guide VIP guests under the staff's direction, flashing their ID badges as they moved around. A little behind them was a woman dressed modestly, clutching a folder, Michelle, I assumed. Seeing the three of them together instantly brought back memories of the disastrous mixer, and I felt a headache creeping in. The meeting reached its midpoint, and it was finally time for the session on our overseas business division. The host took the mic, and the screen on stage lit up with the title, New Project Presentation, Overseas Business Division. I could sense a murmur ripple through the audience. And now, to introduce the new project, here is the recently promoted team leader of global planning in the Overseas Business Division, Tyler.
At that moment, a spotlight hit the stage.
The brightness made me squint for a moment, but I knew this was my time to shine. Standing up, I walked to the center of the stage and gave a polite bow. Applause filled the room. Yes, I had been selected as the leader of this project. This project aims to strengthen collaboration across multiple overseas locations while upgrading our existing services.
For instance,
as I spoke, the screen transitioned to colorful graphs and charts. The slides progressed smoothly, and during the Q&A session, both Japanese executives and international guests alternated with their questions.
After addressing the audience in English, I concluded with, "That concludes my report. Thank you very much." With a deep bow,
I felt the spotlight on the stage shine a little too brightly.
Bowing deeply, I felt the stage lights glaring down on me once again.
From the packed hall, I could hear an uncontrollable wave of murmurs and applause.
The extended Q&A session meant the next presenter's turn was approaching. Feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion, I walked off stage.
The meeting wrapped up about 2 hours later. As the lengthy program concluded and the final remarks echoed through the hall, a round of applause filled the room. I caught the eyes of some colleagues near the reception area, sharing a smile that said, "Glad that's over."
Guests from overseas began heading toward the lobby, guided by staff. That's when Kyle spotted me and hurried over. "Tyler, congrats. You are the team leader? That's amazing. You nailed it up there."
As he said that, he seemed genuinely happy, as if it were his own achievement. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I replied, "Thank you, but it still doesn't feel real yet."
Just then, Maria and Nicole approached, their eyes darting nervously. "Tyler? Team leader? That project presentation earlier, that was really you?"
Maria's voice was tinged with disbelief.
Nicole covered her mouth in shock. "You were presenting at such a big event, and in English, too. That's incredible.
Where did the person go who mocked me at that mixer, treating me like a boring guy who only makes 18 grand a month?"
Kyle, grinning mischievously, decided to chime in. "Yeah, Tyler's amazing, right? Bet you two are surprised, huh?"
Maria and Nicole fumbled to respond.
"Well, we didn't really."
But Kyle wasn't letting up. "By the way, at that mixer, you guys were laughing at Tyler, calling him a boring guy who makes 18 grand a month, right?"
"Well, guess what?
That was in dollars."
"Dollars?" Both Maria and Nicole's eyes widened in unison.
I tried to stop him, stammering, "Hey, Kyle, that's enough," but he just kept going. "Yep. His monthly salary is $18,000.
If you convert that to yen, well, you can do the math. Let's just say it's quite a hefty sum.
Before he could finish, Nicole froze.
Wait, that's no way. $18,000?
Maria turned pale as she stammered, that's over 20 million yen a year. Watching the two women, who had once mocked me, now visibly shaken, was complicated, to say the least.
Wait a second. Back then, you said your monthly income was around 18 grand.
Maria tried her best to come up with excuses, her voice desperate, but Kyle simply shrugged beside me.
Well, Tyler wasn't lying.
He just didn't specify whether it was dollars or yen.
Honestly, though,
I couldn't keep quiet after how bad that mixer went. Seeing such an incredible guy like him get mocked like that, yeah, it pissed me off. Kyle turned to me with a sly grin and teased, "Man, they really let a big fish slip away, huh?" Maria and Nicole turned beet red, avoiding eye contact as they stammered over their words.
No, it wasn't like that, not at all. Yeah, it was, just a joke, you know?
Gone was the confident attitude they had displayed on the mixer.
Well, we should get going.
With that, Maria and Nicole hurried off, almost fleeing from the scene.
Once they were gone, I turned to Kyle and whispered, "That was a bit much, don't you think?"
You didn't have to bring up the whole dollars thing.
Yeah, sorry about that. But man, I couldn't hold it in. I've been annoyed since that night, watching them talk down to you like that. It was too satisfying not to say something. Kyle laughs cheerfully, looking completely refreshed. Seeing that expression, I lost the urge to say anything more. Sure, I had a bad experience at the mixer the other day.
But Kyle must have also felt bad as the organizer about how things ended on such a sour note.
Alright, fine. But let's keep things under wraps next time, okay?
I really don't want that kind of attention spreading.
Yeah, I hear you. Although, it's probably too late for that. Maria and Nicole are bound to tell someone. Kyle joked, shrugging. Surprisingly, I didn't feel as annoyed as I thought I would. In the past, I might have worried about the drama. But now, I felt oddly at peace.
It wasn't just the promotion or the project leadership, it was the confidence that came with knowing I was trusted to handle something this important. What Maria and Nicole thought of me didn't matter. As long as I stayed true to my work and myself, that was enough. A few days later.
Hey, Tyler. I heard the project's going really well. You've got such an important role, it's honestly so cool.
It was lunchtime, and I was at my desk reviewing documents when Maria and Nicole approached me with unnaturally cheerful expressions. The same two women who had mocked me relentlessly at the mixer were now all smiles and overly polite. Maria tilted her head with a sweet, almost coy look, her brightly dyed hair swaying as she spoke.
Your presentation at the meeting was amazing.
We saw you interacting with the international guests in English, it was so impressive.
Honestly, we were blown away by how perfect you were. Nicole nodded eagerly beside her. Yeah, totally. It was incredible.
You're such a reliable team leader, everyone's been saying how much they trust you. Their flattery was obvious, but I could tell it wasn't just praise, they had an ulterior motive. Sure enough, they exchanged glances and in unison launched into their real pitch.
So, Tyler, we were thinking, how about we go out for dinner sometime? You know, to celebrate your promotion and hear more about your work.
Yeah, Maria and I were just saying how busy you must be. That's why we thought it'd be nice to help you relax a little.
Maria's tone carries a hint of sweetness, while Nicole nods beside her, saying, right? Right?
At the mixer the other day, they were laughing endlessly about how a monthly income of 18 grand is unbelievable, but honestly, their nerve, or should I say, their sudden change of attitude, is astonishing. I set my pen down and turned to face them, keeping my expression as neutral as possible. Thanks for the invitation, but I'm swamped with the new project right now.
My schedule's completely full, so it's a bit tough. Frankly, I felt no obligation to humor them.
Maria furrowed her brows slightly, giving me a pleading look as she leaned in.
Oh, but can't you find a little time?
It doesn't have to be right away. Whenever your schedule clears up, we're totally free.
Yeah, we'd love to learn from you, Tyler. Nicole added, flashing an overly bright smile.
No matter how polite or eager they seemed, remembering their past behavior left me completely uninterested.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Maybe someday, when things settle down.
I kept my response non-committal, showing no intention of accepting their offer. Realizing they weren't getting anywhere, Maria and Nicole exchanged disappointed glances before retreating.
Well, let us know when you have time. Okay? We'll be waiting. As they walked away, I watched their retreating figures disappear across the office floor. Finally, I let out a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Seriously, after all that, they still have the nerve. My colleagues at nearby desks, who had clearly overheard the interaction, gave me knowing smirks and exchanged quiet chuckles. Many people at the party seemed to know those women, and everyone exchanged exasperated glances. As I sighed and stared at the monitor, I suddenly felt someone's presence. When I looked up, a familiar, reserved woman was standing there, Michelle. She was holding several files in her arms. Tyler, I'm sorry. I just brought these documents over for you,
she said in a soft voice. I replied with a simple thanks and took the files from her.
There were a few thick sets of documents.
They seemed to be some kind of procedural forms, and she briefly explained the content.
And also,
after finishing her explanation, she hesitated for a moment, lowering her lashes. I could tell she was a bit nervous.
About the other day. I'm really sorry. I must have made you feel uncomfortable. Her words left me feeling uneasy.
Honestly, she was almost dragged into the situation, and if anything, I wasn't the only one who felt out of place back then. Still, for her to come all the way to apologize like this, it must have weighed heavily on her mind.
Don't worry about it. I think it was just that I didn't vibe with the atmosphere. If anything, you have nothing to apologize for.
As I spoke, I recalled the party. While Maria and Nicole kept laughing, Michelle had looked uncomfortable, her gaze often cast downward. I also remembered how, after the party ended, she went out of her way to catch up to me and apologize. Knowing that it still bothered her made me feel bad for her. No, I laughed along with them back then and let myself get carried away without saying anything. I'm really not good with those situations.
But I couldn't refuse.
That's why I wanted to properly apologize to you. Michelle bowed her head slightly as she said this.
Her modest demeanor reflected her personality well.
Just the fact that she came to see me like this was enough to leave me with no hard feelings.
If anything, I was reminded of how sincere a person she was. Thank you. Really, it's fine.
If anything, I might have said something rude back there too, and it's not like anything worse happened.
I feel bad that you even felt like you needed to apologize.
When I said that, she let out a relieved sigh. The tension seemed to ease just a little, and a faint smile appeared on her lips.
I'm glad. Even though I knew you weren't upset, it was eating at me.
I felt so disappointed in myself. Though a trace of guilt still lingered in her eyes, I thought she had done more than enough. Just having this conversation allowed me to let go of the awkwardness from that night. We'll probably run into each other often, so let's make sure we can work together comfortably.
Let's just leave that night behind us,
I said, lightly tapping the files with my fingers. Hearing that, Michelle smiled warmly, bowed deeply, and said,
Thank you so much. Well, I'll take my leave now.
Sorry to bother you while you were busy. Before leaving, she pointed out one of the checklist items on the materials she had brought over and added,
If you have any questions about the content, please let me know.
Then she walked away. As I watched her go, I naturally turned my attention back to my desk. Thanks to her sincere apology, the unpleasant memory of that awkward party seemed to fade quite a bit. In relationships, some people only care about money or status, while others genuinely try to connect. This was undeniably true.
All right. Somehow, my mood felt a little lighter.
Returning to the overwhelming project documents displayed on my monitor, I felt like I had finally put that night's bad aftertaste to rest. Then, one day, I needed to check some administrative documents related to a new project and had to visit the relevant department. When I arrived at the floor, Maria and Nicole were standing near the reception desk. I considered walking past unnoticed, but they spotted me immediately.
Their faces lit up instantly. "Tyler, you look busy as usual, great job." "Oh, it's really you, Tyler." "Hey, by the way, weren't those materials from the overseas client crazy thick? That must have been tough."
"Huh?" As always, they approached me with no regard for my schedule, diving into conversation. Their attitude was drastically different from how they acted right after the party, now overly cheerful and friendly. I internally chuckled at their change in demeanor but reminded myself that I still had work to get done. I had decided to keep the conversation to the bare minimum since I was just here to pick up some documents.
I'm here for some interdepartmental coordination. Is the person in charge?"
Just as I began to speak, I heard a voice laced with anger coming from the back.
"Michelle, is it still not done? I told you to have those documents ready ages ago.
This is way too slow." Glancing toward the source of the voice, I noticed Michelle, surrounded by a mountain of papers,
shrinking behind a desk in what looked like a cramped storage area.
She looked visibly intimidated, her eyebrows drooping apologetically.
I'm so sorry. I'll get it done right away. Just a little more time, please." "Excuse me? Stop making excuses and just finish it already. This is why people think you can't do your job." Maria's sharp, domineering voice rang out, relentless. From the outside, it looked less like a supervisor reprimanding a subordinate and more like outright bullying. I had gotten the same vibe during the mixer. Maria was the kind of person who would go after anyone she deemed weaker. Nicole, standing nearby, didn't bother to intervene. She seemed too caught up in Maria's influence to stop her.
After a brief hesitation, I decided to approach Michelle, thinking she might have the documents I needed.
Tyler, I'm so sorry. I was just about to finish them."
She scrambled to her feet but lost her balance, causing some of the papers she was holding to scatter across the floor. As the papers fluttered down, I instinctively bent down to help gather them. Maria, watching this, let out an exaggerated sigh and spoke in a condescending tone.
"Seriously? So clumsy. Hurry up and clean it up. Stop making Tyler waste his time on you." "I'm so sorry, Tyler. Really, I'll put it together right away." Seeing Michelle bow apologetically, I shook my head. "You don't need to apologize. It's my fault for rushing you. Just calm down."
As I tried to help, she hesitated slightly, unsure whether to accept my help. I remembered how apologetic she'd been during the mixer. Seeing her work now, it was obvious she was hardworking and sincere. So why was she being treated this poorly?
"Hey, Tyler, why don't you come over here? Let's talk."
Maria suddenly cut in, her tone intentionally drawing attention to herself.
Nicole chimed in, Yeah. Tyler's busy. He doesn't have time for this kind of stuff, right?"
"No, I'm the one who came to pick up the documents, so it's fine. Besides, it'd be unfair to leave it all to Michelle." I ignored them and continued helping Michelle pick up the scattered papers.
"I'm sorry."
Hearing her quiet apology, I asked her something that had been on my mind.
"Why are you the only one handling this? Couldn't this be done much faster if everyone pitched in?"
Michelle gave a strained smile and replied in a hushed voice.
"Well, I'm a temp. So handling these tasks is part of my job. I can't really say no.
Her voice was so soft I had to strain to hear her, but the pain and frustration were evident. I hadn't thought much about it during the mixer, but it dawned on me now, her position and status at work must be incredibly unstable. In recent years, I'd heard stories about major companies treating temp workers poorly, and this seemed like a textbook example.
Maria's and Nicole's attitudes made it all too clear. I see.
I let out a sigh as Maria popped her head out again, calling out, "Tyler."
So you've got the documents now, right? Great. Let's grab dinner sometime. Okay? Nicole added, yes. Let's do that, while waving cheerfully. Yeah, I replied vaguely, offering a half smile.
"I'll go check the documents," I said, excusing myself and leaving the room. I heard Maria and Nicole giggling and chatting behind me, but I chose to tune them out. Carrying a stack of files in both hands, I stepped into the elevator, feeling a knot of frustration in my chest. Something about this whole situation left me deeply unsettled. As I walked down the hallway toward the meeting room, Michelle's image lingered in my mind. Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me. "Tyler." Turning around, I saw Michelle running toward me, slightly out of breath as she caught up. She must have hurriedly put the papers away because she was still a little flushed. "I'm sorry for all the commotion earlier."
Tyler, if there's anything wrong with the documents, please let me know. I want to make sure I did everything correctly."
I couldn't help but give a wry smile as I watched her timidly avoiding eye contact.
Was she worried about her own mistake, or was it what happened earlier with Maria that was bothering her? Maybe it was both. I'll check on it. Thanks for going out of your way to catch up with me.
When I stopped walking and said this, Michelle spoke hesitantly, looking apologetic.
I'm always getting scolded like that. It's so embarrassing. And honestly, Maria and I aren't really friends. I was only invited to the mixer to even out the numbers. There's this rumor that if you cross Maria, you'll get fired. So, it was true. That explains why she seemed out of place at the mixer. She feels forced to fit in, but deep down, she hates it. And for someone like her, a temp worker, going against full-time employees like Maria and her clique isn't an option. It's easy to imagine the kind of pressure she's under. But that doesn't make it okay for them to treat you like that. You don't have to put up with something so unreasonable.
Before I could finish, Michelle looked down, clutching her file tightly to her chest.
My mom's sick, and I really can't afford to lose this job. I've been through a few temp placements, but the pay and benefits here are still better than most. So I don't have the courage to fight back. It's pathetic, isn't it? She let out a small, dry laugh. It's not pathetic at all.
The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them, and Michelle looked up, blinking in surprise. At the very least, I'm glad I got to meet you. That mixer was awful, but because of you, I was able to move forward. Even I was surprised by how straightforward I sounded.
It felt a little embarrassing. Tyler. Thank you. Hearing that, it really helps.
Her voice sounded faintly shaky.
I exhaled slowly and gave her a gentle smile.
We're colleagues, even if we're in different roles.
If anything ever happens, don't hesitate to come to me, okay? Okay. I will. Michelle gave a small nod. Well then, see you. Good luck with work. Thank you. And with that, we both returned to our respective tasks. A few days later,
with the flood of new project materials and meetings, staying at work until nearly midnight had become routine for me.
The few remaining employees in the office all carried a noticeable air of exhaustion.
Around 10 p.m., I finally finished replying to emails and stood up from my desk. The office lights began to turn off, one section after another, plunging areas into darkness.
Phew.
After hours of working on the computer, my shoulders felt unbearably stiff. As I stretched my back slightly and walked down the hallway to leave the room, I heard the faint sound of someone shuffling papers in the distance. It was a little early for the night security staff to start their rounds. Curious to see who else was still here, I headed toward the sound. There she was, Michelle. Stacks of files towered on her desk, and even cardboard boxes were lined up nearby. It looked like an absurd amount of work. Was it a different task from what she was saddled with before, or just a continuation of it? Either way, it was clearly too much. Michelle. I called out instinctively, and she turned around, startled. Faint dark circles under her eyes hinted at how tired she was. Oh, Tyler. You're still here? I could say the same for you. It's already past 10. Are you sure you're okay working this late? Yeah. Some additional tasks came up related to paperwork. I have to get these done by tomorrow morning. She shrugged apologetically. I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. It was obvious someone had dumped this work on her. Why are you handling all this on your own? Weren't these documents Maria and her team's responsibility? They were, originally. But suddenly, they just said, "You can take it from here." I couldn't say no. As she looked down while explaining, her expression reminded me of the uneasy look she had at the mixer. Once again, someone must have taken advantage of her kindness or her vulnerable position and clocked out early, leaving everything to her. Ah, I knew it. Honestly, how can they keep piling on so much unreasonable work? Is there anything I can help with? I've already wrapped up my work for today, and I've still got time before the last train, so I can lend a hand. What? No, I couldn't possibly ask you to. You're a supervisor, Tyler. It wouldn't be right for you to help with this kind of busy work. Titles don't matter. If I leave you to handle this alone, you'll barely make the last train, right? I shook my head, half in exasperation, as she muttered hesitantly, but clearly unsure of what to do. Just let me help. The faster we finish together, the better. I'll get back into work mode for a little while, and if we focus, we won't be here too late. I pulled over an empty chair from the corner of the desk. As she stammered, "I'm so sorry." "Thank you so much," over and over. I listened to her brief explanation of the tasks and began sorting through the documents quickly and efficiently. After about 30 minutes, we finally finished. With the last check complete, Michelle let out a deep sigh and smiled, though she looked tired. "That's everything. Thank you so much, Tyler. You really saved me." "You're welcome." "Well then, it's pretty late. How about we grab a bite to eat before heading home? There's a 24-hour spot near the station where we can get something light. Only if you're okay with it, though." The moment I said it, a hint of embarrassment crept over me. Michelle, surprised, widened her eyes, but soon relaxed and gave a faint smile. "If it's not too much trouble. I'd like that. I'm actually a little hungry." "Great. Let's wrap things up here, tidy the desk, turn off the lights, and handle the sign-out process before we go." "Okay." Her reply sounded much more energetic this time. Her smile, though tinged with fatigue, carried a sense of relief and gratitude. We headed to a 24-hour chain restaurant near the station. "Once again, thank you so much for tonight. Not only for helping me with the work but also for staying out so late to have dinner with me. I feel like I owe you something in return." "No need for that. Don't be so formal. I helped out because I wanted to, and dinner wasn't a reward, it's just something I wanted to do." "But," seeing her hesitate, I added quietly, "Look, the point is that sitting here and having a meal together might help relieve some of the stress from work. That's what matters, isn't it? To be honest, I've been so caught up in this project that I haven't had much time to just talk to people. I needed this too." While waiting for the food, she began to share bits and pieces about her life. She mentioned how her mother's health had stabilized recently, but with caregiving expenses being so high,
she needed to continue working somewhere with decent pay, even if only as a temp. What about you, Tyler? Isn't it tough handling the new project?
I heard you were put in charge of it.
Well, it's not easy, but it's rewarding. Dealing with overseas clients can be a challenge, and the English meetings are mentally exhausting.
But when you deliver results, the recognition and the pay is worth it.
I see.
Even people higher up the ladder have their own struggles.
Yeah. Is that why you downplayed your salary at the mixer?
I gave a wry smile, remembering the moment she referred to.
Ah, that.
Yeah, honestly, not just at that mixer but most of the time, I either downplay it or avoid the topic altogether. Being in the international business division comes with its share of nosy questions. Plus, my dad ran a fairly successful business,
so we grew up well off.
I never really experienced financial struggles as a kid.
But because of that,
I started questioning whether people saw me for who I was or for what my family could offer.
I see.
As I got older, it became more obvious there were people who approached me just for money.
Since then, I've been reluctant,
scared to share the truth about my background. I keep wondering if people would change their attitude toward me if they knew. As I lowered my voice to finish, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I was all too aware that I was revealing something I hadn't shared with anyone before. While I truly appreciated my friends and colleagues, I hadn't been able to discuss this deep-rooted fear with anyone.
But I'm not one of those people. Meeting you has been a blessing for me, Tyler.
Michelle lifted her head as she said this.
Sure, there are people like that. But not everyone around you is like them. At the very least, I'm not.
Her voice was small, and her cheeks flushed slightly as she spoke. As the clock passed 11:30 p.m., I decided it was time to wrap things up and head home to avoid affecting tomorrow, so I settled the bill. She suggested we split the bill, but since I was the one who invited her today, I went ahead and paid for everything up front.
Wait, but I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. Let me be the senior for once. If there's a next time, you can treat me.
Sure,
if anything comes up, I'll let you know, Michelle said, stumbling over her words. I couldn't help but feel a laugh bubbling up inside me.
Her hair swayed gently in the night breeze, faintly illuminated by the glow of the city lights. Just minutes ago, she'd been surrounded by mountains of paperwork. It was hard to believe this was the same person. Maybe, just maybe, the ability to trust someone wholeheartedly begins with small, quiet moments like this. Regardless of how busy or high-stakes life might be. With that thought, I walked beside her toward the station. A few days later, I was working through emails at my desk when I noticed Michelle approaching. She was carrying a file and wore a slightly nervous expression.
Tyler, I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy. It's fine.
I just finished up something, so don't worry.
What's up?
She pulled a small envelope from her bag and held it out to me.
Actually,
I received these meal vouchers for a restaurant.
A client gave them to me for event use, but there's no way I can use them all on my own.
As she explained, her cheeks turned a faint shade of pink. It was a voucher for a high-end restaurant, as evident by the embossed logo on the card inside the envelope.
I was thinking, if you'd like, I'd really like to go with you as a thank you for the other day. That is, if it's not a bother. Oh, it's not a bother at all. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad. How about this weekend? That works for me. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, I'll message you the time later. Thank you again,
she said before quickly walking off, still holding her materials. Her steps seemed lighter than usual, almost like she was skipping away. Watching her retreating figure, I felt a strange warmth welling up in my chest. My gaze drifted down to the envelope in my hand. Sure, it's just a restaurant voucher, I thought, but the fact that she went out of her way to offer it meant something. Smiling to myself, I turned back to my computer. Alright, time to finish up and get ready for the weekend, I murmured, diving back into my project files. The workload with overseas coordination was still heavy, but even the busyness felt more manageable. I have plans to have dinner with Michelle this weekend, just the two of us. Just knowing that is enough to lift my spirits this much, I took a deep breath, acknowledging that fact, and focused on my work. Friday night. We'd agreed to meet at 7 p.m. However, when I looked around near the entrance, Michelle was nowhere to be seen. Checking my phone, I saw no new messages from her. Maybe I arrived a little too early, I thought, as I sat on a nearby chair to wait. Then, from a distance, I saw familiar curled hair swaying as it approached me. Well, if it isn't Tyler. Did I keep you waiting? The voice belonged to Maria. Her glossy curls bounced as she walked toward me, carrying a designer bag and flashing a smug smile. I frowned in confusion. Why is she here? Maria? What are you doing here? Is Michelle with you? When I asked, Maria shrugged her shoulders with an amused look. She couldn't make it. Something came up last minute. So, I'm here in her place. In her place? A sense of dread crept over me. As I stood there frozen, Maria folded her arms and gave me an exaggerated wink. That's right. She said she had some urgent plans come up and couldn't come. But she didn't want the reservation to go to waste. So she asked me to come instead. Maria smirked, the corner of her lips curling upward. Michelle did something like that? So, it's just the two of us tonight. Don't worry, I'll make it worth your while. Maria reached for my arm, but I instinctively stepped back, avoiding her grasp. I couldn't make sense of the situation, but I knew I needed to contact Michelle. I quickly opened my phone and sent her a message. No reply. Not even a read receipt. Maria glanced at it out of the corner of her eye and laughed. It's pointless. There's no use trying to contact her tonight. Well, it looks like it's just the two of us. But hey, why not make the best of it? Let's enjoy dinner. Reluctantly, I found myself following her into the restaurant. Inside, the lighting was warm and subdued, with soft music creating a calm atmosphere. The place was filled with couples and groups of friends, all enjoying their Friday night. We were shown to the reserved table, and I sat down, feeling a weight of frustration and unease. Maria, on the other hand, was beaming as she opened the menu. Wow, this looks delicious. Should we get some wine? She said, humming to herself as she glanced over the options. She glanced at me with an almost teasing smile, clearly in high spirits. But I couldn't share her mood. This was supposed to be a special dinner with Michelle. What on earth had happened to her? We placed some orders, choosing a few dishes and drinks. Then, out of nowhere, Maria leaned in and said, "You know, Tyler, I've fallen for you." Her bold confession froze my thoughts. My confusion must have shown on my face, as Maria chuckled softly and leaned in closer. Why don't you go out with me? You'd be the perfect boyfriend. You're in the overseas business division, making great money, right? Of course you're popular. So that's what this was about. I set my glass down, taking a slow, steady breath before responding. Sorry, but I'm not interested in dating you. It was the only answer I could give. Considering Maria's behavior, it's only natural to think so. Even if she suddenly starts showing affection, it's obvious whether it's just superficial or if she intends to use me as a stepping stone. What? Are you serious? You're turning me down? Maria slams the table with a bang and snaps back at me. Her outburst was loud enough that a few nearby customers turned to look. I'm sorry. The moment I put it into words, her eyes seemed to waver. How dare you dump me? What kind of nerve do you have? I'll make you regret this. She scraped her chair back with a creak and stood up, her heels clicking against the floor. Suddenly, a mocking smirk appeared on her lips as she threw out this parting shot.
Did you know? Michelle's been using you. This whole thing tonight, she's the one who handed it to me.
She said, "You can have him all to yourself tonight."
Isn't that hilarious?
Her words sent a cold, uneasy sensation rippling through me.
That's a lie.
There's no way Michelle would do that.
Oh, you actually believe that? How naive can you be?
She sneered before striding out of the restaurant. I was left sitting there, staring at the half-eaten food on the table, completely at a loss.
What's true and what's not? My thoughts were a chaotic swirl as I stood up, leaving the restaurant behind. The next morning at work, something felt off.
As I walked down the hallway to my desk, I could feel several colleagues giving me subtle looks and whispering to each other.
As I sat down, feeling an uneasy sense of foreboding, the colleague next to me asked, "Are you okay?" "Ha? What do you mean?" "Well, last night. Maria's been saying you forced yourself on her."
There it is.
Maria had said she'd make me regret it. I had thought she might pull something, but I hadn't imagined she'd escalate it this far.
Glancing over at the General Affairs Teams area, I noticed Maria deliberately speaking in a voice loud enough for me to hear, saying things like, "Last night was really scary, and I was forced to drink."
Nicole, though still doubtful, nodded hesitantly, pushed by Maria's forceful demeanor.
He hugged me.
I didn't know what to do.
It seemed she had completely crafted a script. She was likely stacking lies upon lies, aiming to elicit sympathy from everyone around her as the victim.
Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification from the company's internal messaging app.
It was a slightly urgent message. The higher-up, Timothy, wants to conduct an inquiry. Timothy, an executive in our company, was a key figure overseeing international projects. He was known for his fair character, but when a harassment allegation arises, the company can't simply overlook it. With heavy steps, I walked into the executive's office, where Maria was already seated, acting as though she were both a victim and had a witness on her side. Maria had tears pooling in her half-closed eyes.
I was so scared. I said no, but
I was stunned as Maria repeated her fabricated story. Her tale was riddled with obvious contradictions, yet she spun them one after another.
I didn't do it.
I firmly denied the allegations, but Maria began sobbing even louder as though supporting her case. Her overly theatrical act made me feel sick, but I knew reacting emotionally would only work against me. If only there were some objective evidence, but for now, it was just her word against mine.
Understood. Tyler, return to your department for now.
We'll need to hear more details later.
With that final statement, I reluctantly left the room.
Walking down the corridor, my entire body felt as heavy as lead.
Michelle had taken leave since that incident, and I still hadn't heard from her. I couldn't even tell what position she was taking. Could it be, as Maria claimed, that she really assigned for her?
That seemed impossible, but a nagging unease lingered in the back of my mind.
The following Monday.
The morning in the office, which should have been the same as always, felt oddly heavy. There was an unnatural emptiness around my desk.
It was clear that everyone was keeping their distance as if avoiding me.
The reason was obvious. By Friday last week, the rumor of Maria's claim that I harassed her had spread through the company like wildfire.
Like an online scandal, sensational rumors outpaced the actual facts, and overnight, I was branded the perpetrator.
To make matters worse, the company, due to the harassment allegations, was apparently considering temporarily removing me as the leader of the overseas project, pending a decision from upper management.
Whispers about disciplinary action following corporate policies had begun circulating. I was entirely backed into a corner.
No matter how loudly I proclaimed the truth, as long as she kept lying with tears in her eyes, everyone prioritized the victim's account.
Damn it.
I was about to bury my head in my hands at my desk when suddenly, my work phone buzzed with an incoming call. On the screen was Timothy's name. "Tyler, come to the meeting room now. The upper management is deciding on your disciplinary action." His low voice sent a chill down my spine. Could this be it? Was my removal about to become official? The thought filled me with dread. With heavy steps, I took the elevator down and opened the meeting room door, where Timothy, several compliance officers, and HR representatives were waiting. At the table's far end, Maria sat quietly. "Good morning." I tried to maintain a calm demeanor as I greeted them, but Timothy, flipping through some documents, began speaking in a composed tone. "Given the harassment allegations, the company may have no choice but to remove you from the project immediately. Tyler, if you have any rebuttals or evidence, now is the time to present them. We need to clarify the situation here." All eyes turned toward me. Maria, sitting beside me, feigned a sad expression, pressing a handkerchief to her eyes while keeping her head down. "I didn't do anything." There's no way I hugged or pressured her. In fact, last Friday, I was supposed to meet Michelle. Then suddenly, Maria showed up out of nowhere. Before I could finish, Maria broke into sobs. How cruel. To make it sound like I forced myself on him. She cried dramatically. Tears fell from Maria's eyes as if she were playing the role of a tragic victim. I started to feel that, at this rate, my words might lack any credibility. Maybe, it's over for me. Just as I felt my spirit begin to break, it happened. The meeting room door swung open with a bang. "Excuse me." It was Michelle who came rushing in, out of breath. Her expression was tenser than I had ever seen before. Yet, her eyes were filled with a determined resolve. That harassment story, it's all a lie from Maria. The sudden accusation caused a stir in the room. Maria clicked her tongue, muttering, "What the hell?" Timothy calmly urged, "Michelle, explain yourself," and Michelle, with trembling hands, pulled out some documents. The restaurant reservation from that day was mine. Maria took the tickets from me. She said, holding up her phone. She displayed the message history with Maria on the screen. The messages showed dates, times, and most damningly, a message from Maria saying, "I'll just take your spot. You don't deserve it anyway. If you don't want to lose your job, you'd better keep quiet." I was too scared to say anything. My mom depends on me, and I can't afford to lose my job. But I can't let Tyler get dragged down because of me. Michelle said that and held out her phone to Timothy. Her hand trembled slightly, and tears welled up in her eyes. Maria's face turned pale as the fabricated story unraveled. Timothy carefully examined the messages and cross-referenced the dates and times. After some time, he closed the file with a thud, letting out a deep sigh before delivering his conclusion. "This is outright fabrication. Maria, your claims lack consistency and contradict both Michelle's evidence and testimony. Tyler, the harassment allegations against you are entirely false, and your name is cleared." With those words, the tension in the room dissolved instantly. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders and let out a sigh of relief from the depths of my soul. Fabricating harassment claims. This is a serious matter that the company cannot overlook. Maria will face disciplinary action, which may include termination. Timothy's words were delivered coldly, and Maria's face turned bright red as she screamed, "Why? Why do you believe them? I'm the victim here." But no one gave her cries any serious attention anymore. In the end, Maria was handed a severe punishment, termination, and she stormed out of the meeting room, biting her lip in frustration. By then, rumors of her false harassment claim had already begun circulating throughout the office. While I didn't know what kind of future awaited her, one thing was certain: she was held accountable for her actions. I was fully exonerated from the harassment charges and reinstated as the leader of the overseas project. Misunderstandings among my colleagues cleared up, and the cold stares directed at me gradually softened.
After everything had settled, I found myself alone in a quiet corner of the hallway with Michelle. You really saved me.
If it weren't for you, I'd have been removed as project leader.
Thank you, I said, bowing my head. Michelle looked down apologetically, her voice trembling. At first, Maria threatened me, saying I'd lose my job if I went against her, so I couldn't say anything. But I never thought it would escalate like this.
I'm so sorry for what I caused. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she spoke, her voice quivering. She looked fragile. Yet there was a quiet strength in her that I hadn't noticed before. She must have been terrified. And yet, she mustered the courage to tell the truth. Looking at her, there wasn't a shred of blame in me, only gratitude.
It's okay.
None of this was your fault. You were willing to risk your standing at the company to save me.
Thank you.
As I spoke, I almost placed a hand gently on her shoulder but quickly pulled it back. After all, we're still at work, and causing any awkward misunderstandings would be a bad idea. Still, I hoped my gratitude came through. She trembled slightly, but then a small, faint smile spread across her face. Then, she pulled something from her pocket. It was a resignation letter.
Thank you for everything,
she said quietly, handing it to me.
I was dumbfounded. I never imagined it would end like this. Wait, hold on a second. Why are you suddenly talking about quitting? I caused trouble for you and the company.
I couldn't stop Maria, and I let her lies go unchecked until the very end.
So, I feel I need to take responsibility.
Her small hands trembled as they gripped the resignation letter. Thanks to her courage in speaking the truth, the damage to me and the company was minimized. And yet, she seemed unable to forgive herself, blaming herself endlessly. Michelle, please don't be hasty about quitting. You're not at fault, and the company needs you. I've seen your work, and it's obvious how much you contribute. Even your colleagues say Michelle is reliable and hardworking, but She tried to push back, but I paused, took a deep breath, and searched for the right words.
How could I express my feelings clearly? Despite my hesitation, I knew I had to be honest and sincere.
For the first time, I felt it was worth trusting someone. You spoke up for me, even though it might have put you at a disadvantage.
That meant so much to me.
So, please stay.
Let's keep working together. I don't want to lose you.
Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, she seemed lost for words. But slowly, tears welled up in her eyes, and she gave a small nod.
Are you sure?
I mean, I'm just a temp, and I'm not that fast at my work.
It has to be you. No one else can do what you do.
I'll be busy with the new project too, but I want us to support each other openly from now on.
I think the company would prefer that as well.
So please, don't quit. I realized my voice had gotten a little louder, and a colleague from a nearby desk peeked over, asking, "What's going on?"
Flustered, I quickly bowed my head. Sorry, it's nothing.
Michelle, on the other hand, was blushing deeply, clutching her handkerchief as she wiped her tears.
Thank you, truly. Then, I won't resign.
She smiled as she said it. And so, Michelle's resignation was withdrawn, my name was officially cleared, and the harassment allegations were entirely dismissed. As for Michelle, the company began discussing offering her a full-time position. Her dedication as a temp worker, her work ethic, and her courageous stand during the incident were recognized by HR,
who convinced Timothy to support her promotion.
It was clear that Timothy and the upper management had decided, she's an essential asset to this company. In the early afternoon, during a short break, I ran into Michelle in the hallway. Blushing slightly, she said to me, "Tyler, I'll do my best from now on.
It might be harder than when I was a temp, but you've got this. And hey, I'm not backing down either. Also,
She fidgeted nervously before continuing.
This time, would you go out with me?
Just the two of us. Of course. We naturally smiled at each other. The chaos that began at that group mixer had finally come to an end, though I never expected it to end this way.
But this wasn't the conclusion, it was the true beginning.
Both of us had taken our first steps toward something new. Like stepping out of the darkness into the warmth of the light. Awkward as I may be, I've come to know the joy and responsibility of trusting someone. From here on out, I want to walk this path together with her.